29, yes. Anna gets to
Well,
turn it
as a
on.
preliminary possibility or something, it's not a...
The Cooper Farm at 9:15.
All
I'd
right.
like to
Save the best for last?
open this meeting
No, they're not coming in.
for
Cooper.
April 9th, for the Conservation Commission at
Continued.
7:30. I'd like
Wow.
to start with the approval of
Yeah.
minutes for March 19th, 2018. Anybody got any omissions or corrections?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bottom, the minutes should say March 19th. It says March 5th
Oh, yeah,
right
yeah.
now. Just edits on the first page. Oh, and on the continued public hearing, notice of intent 73 Hartwell, it says galleries repeatedly, G-A-L-L-E-Y, or galleys.
The
It
galleys.
should be galleries.
Galleys?
Infiltration galleries. It's a gallery, or plural galleries. Yeah, so throughout, it should be gallery, G-A-L-L-E-R-Y. And, that's very little, but you say 9th sometimes and not just April 9? Anyway, just make it consistent throughout there. Oh, you say property had in public hearing, notice of intent 44 Bruce Street, you say chapter 761A, it should be just 61.
Hey, it should be 61A.
Yeah, there's a
61.
7 in it.
Right. And then, oh, and at the bottom of the third page, it says the vote in favor at 10 p.m. was 4-0. Did somebody leave between,
Yes.
okay, it doesn't say
It
that.
It doesn't say that somebody left.
Okay, it should say somebody left between public hearing request for a minute order of conditions, continued public hearing notice of intent, and then the final vote.
Yeah.
Should it be so noted that Andrew left at
Yeah, I'll just do
9
that.
o'clock?
Yeah.
And that's it, I think.
Anybody else got any omissions or corrections? Okay, no, this is if somebody make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Present.
minutes approved. Move on to administrative discussion, proposed town meeting article on tax title property for butters, land sales and conservation. Somebody wanna,
So this is for the rest of that, or not the rest of that piece, the other two pieces that might come out of that adjacent piece to the Yap parcels. These two went in the fall, got approved in the fall, so now it's just these two slivers.
Looks like they're skinnier than they were in the fall. So
Could
like
be.
10 feet. I think they were wider in the fall.
I honestly didn't go back and check.
Okay.
And then, again, with the remainder being transferred to the Conservation Commission.
Mm.
So the Board of Selectmen would like the Conservation Commission's recommendation, or not recommendation.
What were those parcels off of?
That's the,
Manchester?
Oh, that, the access point to the.
Near the garden, Yap.
Yeah.
it's the access.
I think there's 20 feet left. I couldn't quite tell from what I was looking at. It looked like there'd be,
Yeah, it's hard
20 or
to read.
30.
there'd be 20
what
feet
this
left.
footage is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't
5 feet?
couldn't
Could
read
be
it on
enough
my
What,
screen.
access.
Yeah.
Like to drive.
This
Yeah.
is here,
I don't think-
where
oh.
they're,
It-
where they're expanding into the.
I think, well, I can't remember what that
Be
is.
interesting
There's
if the
30
20
left.
feet is
Oh.
where
And what was
it
it?
is now.
Mhm.
So you're looking for
There's a
just
fire hydrant there.
um,
I would assume a memo to the selectmen of some sort.
Of our
without
interest- of
approval.
our-
I just need to give them recommendation for Article 12, to support Article 12.
So I would make a recommendation that we support Article 12.
Yeah, it looks okay to me.
Anyone want to second it?
It's enough. I second it.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Yeah, I looked at it earlier.
Request for extension of 330 King Street Congregational Church, U19-13, Mass D, file number 204-756.
How long are they looking to extend, Amy?
He didn't specifically say. They say much of the construction is complete with final grading, drainage, and pavement adjustments within the parking lot remaining, scheduled to begin this summer.
When is it due to expire?
It's due later this month, I believe.
I move that we offer an extension of 1 year for 330 King Street Congregational
I
Church.
think you should go for 3 years on that.
They've already had an extension.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but they also need to finish up on the detention basins that have been put in, so this will give them opportunity to finish. I went out, I mean, it looks
Have
good.
they asked, oh, so we said we
Went
didn't
out
know
for the
how
second
long
one.
they wanted,
Mhm.
how long they've
I'm just
requested?
thinking the way things move.
They did not,
Stuff, but-
knowing Bruce, he, in the back of his mind, I'm sure he's assuming 3, but they did not specifically ask.
Okay, I make a motion to extend for 2 years.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Scheduled site walk, 10 Fort Pond, 215 Wickham Avenue, lots 4 and 5, Super Farm.
Send the whole package around, I can sign that.
When we come back to that, because we can see if there's any others that we have to schedule. Wanna do that?
Filing fee review.
Yes, I made the changes that we discussed at the last meeting. I don't know if people want to take another look at that,
Sure.
which really wasn't too much. And so this would be a little bit less than doubling fees overall. Right now, I did a very rough check, and it looks like we take in about $15,000 a year, roughly, in fees. So this at least would certainly help cover salary cost. Get
So
closer
what,
to
how
cover.
Yeah.
much, so we're putting it double, well, potentially, depending on how much building.
Right, exactly, yeah, so. But it, like I said, I had done to try to get in range of what a lot of the nearby towns were doing.
But, so if I read this correct, so Littleton presently is at 25, you're proposing to go to 35, and presently the same constraints in Acton is 125, Foxborough is 100, Chelmsford 50 to 100. So you're going up $10,
Yeah,
but not relative to the community at large for other towns.
yeah, the RDAs in particular seem to be all over the place.
Okay.
And Westford is some kind of outlier, because they don't charge anything. They charge 25 for any, just across the board.
But they also have a moratorium on housing in general, like you can only have so many permits issued a year. That could be why.
Hey, but they'd still be expensive permits.
Yeah, no, for sure, but I'm just,
Yeah.
it's,
That's
I guess
another
it's speculation,
way for
really,
some
but-
homes to tax pretty well, too.
Mm.
So, is this acceptable to the board members, if you vote on it and finalize it?
So which tends to be the greatest for us and especially the most time-consuming, in your opinion, Amy? The RDAs, like just for their volume?
Yeah, I mean, because they're simple, but the paperwork's really no less in one sense, but.
And you still have to, many times, you still have to go out, or you have to go out.
Yeah, but I also think of RDAs as usually septic system replacements, something, in the outer 100, so I didn't want to bump it up too much.
I like the fact that we're still being very reasonable for single-family homes and making most of our bump ups for commercial development. But is category 2 a single-family home? Or would that be part of a big development,
It would be per single-family home,
in a development?
or, yeah.
Could be in a development? 'Cause I
And that
think-
involves a crossing?
So if you have a new single-family home it'd be $500 if you have for the DEP.
Yeah.
And if you have a crossing, that'd be activity 2, so it'd be another 500 for the crossing. It's for each activity. I had sent around, I don't think I brought them in with
Okay.
me,
Yeah,
like the
that's fine. Yeah.
3-page description of what goes in these
Yeah.
categories.
remember that.
And for us, it would be another 250 right, for a crossing.
Correct,
So a new single-family home with a crossing would be 1125.
altogether,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I agree. I don't want to hit single-family homes too much, but a crossing definitely needs
Oh,
more.
crossing,
I
definitely.
mean, that's really complicated and time-consuming.
Now, category 3, it says each building, you mean a commercial building? Is that what that is?
I'd have to look at, I had sent those around. Do you want me to go grab those?
Let's come back to it.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's a good discussion.
I thought we'd covered it, so I didn't bring it back
Yeah.
in.
Okay.
Okay. Highway Department, Manawanaki Road drainage improvement.
They are planning some improvements out there. None of the work is in the 100-foot buffer zone, but of course, some of the culvert ends are. They're not changing the end of the culverts. They're not changing the watershed that goes into them. So I said I didn't think they needed to do anything. I just wanted to make sure, someone in Manawanaki starts yelling, that's what.
Yeah.
So they got a phase 1, phase 2, neither of which have anything in the buffer zone. Phase 3, they might be in, so we might see them in a year or two
Okay.
on some later stuff.
Do they have to make improvements for, like, in regards to the MS4 permit and stormwater?
He said they weren't making any improvements, it's just road work. So
Okay.
I didn't specifically ask
I
him about
wonder
the
if they
MS4
should
stuff.
make, while you're in there, do, okay.
So do you need a motion, or just, is that more?
I just wanted to run it,
Yeah, FYI.
let you know.
Okay.
Okay.
So it sounds like we're all in support of the improvements.
Yeah.
Okay. Hartwell Ave conservation restriction update.
Why don't we push that off until Glenn Berger is here
Okay.
for the 73 Hartwell stuff?
Open space annual report, land stewards, archives with memorial.
That is just to let you know the annual reports were submitted. If anybody's interested, I have a list of the land stewards for everybody. And the land stewards are starting some discussion about whether or not to do a memorial for Art Lazarus. So I don't know if anybody had any suggestions about what to do something, but there are suggestions all over the place floating around out there, so.
Definitely would support
And
a
I
memorial.
think they're meeting actually later this week, the land stewards, and this will be one of the things I'll be discussing about, so.
Mill Pond dredging project update.
Is that disposal, the disposal of the soil?
Yes, yeah, so I guess there isn't too much,
It's everything,
That was the meeting last week?
dredging and disposal.
yeah, the meeting last week was somewhat targeted on whether or not use of some of the Cardillo property and various land swaps and all this stuff would even be feasible. So it didn't get too far. They have a lot of work yet to do. They are going to have a meeting, could it be taking not a land swap, but NEF would transfer some of their land basically to the town. The Corps would use it for dewoodering. Cardillo would take the dredge spoil off for free, but then Cardillo would end up with a new area where they can put another yard.
Permanent industrial use.
Yeah, so,
And the last remaining forested upland
But that
within the
meeting's-
wetland complex. So there's a lot of things that can happen that could,
I'm confused again. That meeting this week is not to discuss that, is it? Because that's again the cart before the horse.
the meeting this week is just to make sure that, it's not to come to an agreement or anything, it's just to make sure that NEF understands what's going on, I think. Because if NEF doesn't feel that they can transfer their land out, it's not within their charter, then this is a dead deal.
it's not an alternative.
Yeah,
So it's just a discussion, basically.
yeah.
I didn't understand that they could.
And
They
see if
could
there's some
actually
way they
dispose
can
of it in a
perhaps.
wetland?
Transfer that land out.
Well, that was potentially one of the alternatives, was to spread it across the entire wetland out there. So you wouldn't actually fill the wetland, you'd change the wetland. This is what they did down in Milford.
Thin layer dispersion.
Yeah, it's
It's a thing.
It's a
but
thing, it's definitely a thing.
Especially,
There's so many birds that migrate through there.
So that had been perhaps the lead possibility, other than trucking it off. But it would
Is
also.
this the contaminated? This isn't contaminated, is it?
No.
well, we don't
No,
know
they
for
still
sure.
have more, they've done
Done some.
some testing, but they have more to do.
Yeah.
Oh.
Used to, near the tracks, it used to, I think they showed up some contamination from
Yeah.
the detergents and stuff.
There's the area Corey was talking about that they're not going to disturb because they know there's some contamination there.
So really, it's kind of nothing yet. They're still trying to get their alternatives lined up.
Yeah.
But it's not
And
contaminated.
make sure that this would even be practical in a legal sense of land use.
One thing that, when I was on the call, one thing I wanted to make clear to these guys when they have this next meeting, because they were talking about bringing lawyers to this next meeting, and I was like, I hope you guys don't make decisions like Neff agrees to, give that land, and like there's all these decisions being made and agreements when there's not even a project yet. I thought that was pre-decisional.
Yeah, so I'll be going to the meeting, and, they need to have discussion, see if this is even practical. Is it an agreement that could be crafted? They're not doing any final agreement of what it's gonna be, but there's a lot of moving pieces in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Cordillo was kind of ready, so we're ready to start our permits, and we're like, no. And they don't want to get their permits into the Army Corps.
There's a lot. There's like
It's
a good 3
a lot.
years,
Yeah,
like good 3 years worth of permitting.
yeah,
And-
since they haven't started.
Yep. And if the Corps wasn't going to do their own, it'd be like hundreds of thousands in consulting fees to get all of those together.
And they're aware
It's
of
a
that.
lot.
Like, they
Yeah,
know that.
we made them
I
aware.
don't think they were aware of that.
They were, yeah, I
It
think.
wasn't coming across to me that they were aware. I think they
Yeah, I
thought
don't think
that-
they were aware. They are aware
So they
now.
are, okay.
I
I
think they
appreciate
thought that a
Good.
feasibility report was gonna be enough for them.
Yeah,
to-
no.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and so, I mean, part of the objective was, for the Corps to spend money on an alternatives analysis, and analyzing one alternative could cost like, $10,000 in budget. And so the town does need to explore a potentially viable option to the extent that we can inform the Corps, yes, please spend your budget on this. I mean, so it's kind of, it's a tough, it's just coordination, and it's, hard, you can't be pre-decisional, but you also need to have enough information that it makes sense
Yeah,
to.
make it viable.
Yeah, go
Okay.
through the analysis, so.
All right, nice.
it'll be-
I think we've got to move along.
Yep.
Okay. I guess we'll have to come back to these others right now. We've got a 7:45 public hearing, notice of intent, 107 Harvard Road, R15-5, Mass DEP number 204-8, something for construction of a replacement septic system in the buffer zone.
Evening.
Okay.
Ooh, did you get a DEP file number? I don't think we did.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
It's, I had the,
All right, yep, perfect.
checked online, and it said waiting for state fee to clear as of 3:30.
Yeah.
I have that the whole checkout process on 3:29, so. that is-
That's the state.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
we don't have a number yet.
Yeah, unfortunately, I know what the number's gonna be, but we don't have the official number yet.
If you want to just introduce yourself, that would be
My
great.
name is Doug Smith, Soil Smith Designs, and I did the septic design plan and the wetland work on the property. And It's, this property has a non-perennial stream that starts near Harvard Road, goes across the driveway, there's a small culvert, and it's outlined in blue. And there's also an isolated wetland down there, which I had flagged. When I went to do the septic test pits, first one I did was right behind the house and the swimming pool, near where the existing one was. And the soil was horrible there. It was complete fill. It was stumps and muck and everything all mixed together. And I said, we can't do anything there. It's all man-made fill. You can sort of see it
Yeah, it
on the
breaks down
ground. It
very
just sort of
steeply.
drops
I
right
went
off.
up to the site.
Well, you filled the wet one right there.
Back in the day.
So
It's old.
I wasn't
Yeah.
comfortable with that at all. But down in here, there's a nice ridge, and the soils were very good. And it seemed like the best spot on the property to put it. And it's far enough from the stream. That's the 100-foot buffer from the non-perennial stream. So to me, it is the best spot. We got some good testing there. And so the reason of the notice intent is because of the proximity to this.
So I had a chance to go out on site the other day with Amy after we did another site walk. Are you having to get a variance to put that system in? Because it appeared that you're very close to the property line.
Yes, I'll have to do that because they've got I've got the,
But it is by far the best place for the system and looking at that. So.
yeah, Jim Griffey from Board of Health did review it and actually sent me an email today. So there's a couple small items, but one was that because of some of the fill for the system and the proximity being close, I am gonna have to file a variance with Board of Health.
Okay.
I
Any
tried-
chance the isolated wetland could be a vernal pool, or have you looked at that yet?
I don't think so.
No, I
No.
don't think so. I don't think it would hold enough water for.
And it looks like it's only there because of some of the runoff and, yeah, no.
Is,
It's,
It
will
wasn't
this,
holding
will the
any wood around
septic
here, that's all
discharge,
tiny.
like spring, like come out?
No.
Is that a spring fed? Okay.
no,
Just
it's more,
checking.
it's more like
It'd be
there's a pipe that
unpleasant.
comes off from the drainage and it's a steep
Got it.
slope, so.
Right, well, you get a
when we
break in
walked out
slope,
there, it was
you
just-
get,
yeah,
yeah, okay.
There's, yeah.
And a
be
couple
an
other
unfortunate-
safety factors that I put into the plan is 5 feet for the overdig of the septic. Right after that, I put a 40 mil poly barrier to go in. And that was for two reasons. One, that makes the slope much less. If you don't have that, you have to have a 15-foot breakout, and it would be coming extremely close to the wet area. This way, it confines it, and it will protect it from effluent seeping through or get forced downward instead of more lateral towards there, so.
Do you have enough access to get in there? I mean, it's so narrow coming through, and it seems like there's definitely some trees that need to come
Yeah,
down.
there are
but
some, you can see a few.
probably should come down
They're all
anyway.
sort of marked. The owners of this property, Carol Jurger, the trustee for David Holden, the property above it is owned by the same family.
Oh,
So, the brother owns this house, them, and then the next house. So, it's not an issue for,
I could be good
At
at
the
that.
moment.
for the machine
Yeah.
to cross that
Oh,
border
okay.
to help put it
because it
in.
is, yeah, it's very narrow.
Same, other than that, it would have been very tough.
Yep.
Maybe it's sold.
And to really make it tough, what they're gonna have to do is get this pipe between the garage and this pool. It's gonna require hand digging and a
Right,
lot of other
because
things.
the garage
but-
is behind it and.
Exactly. They put this tank in originally, and the pipe goes underneath the garage, or, I don't
Oh.
know.
Older. kind of
You know, they
way
built the
to-
garage after and didn't even care and poured concrete over the pipe. I don't get
Well, the
it.
house
But
must have been built in 1950, like 50.
you're right, yeah. So,
And so, I mean,
56 when they
so
built
really the reason you
house.
can't go with the, I didn't realize this, I didn't see that earlier, the existing system, sorry, I'll just look at this, is the fill area here, like it was okay when it was installed back in
Yeah, because
whenever it
that's
was,
prior
but
to-
it just wouldn't pass.
Today's
Yeah,
standard.
you could
Okay,
fill
okay. I
with
just wanted to
stumps, you could fill
understand
back with stumps.
And then
but-
this is going away.
And I can't guarantee that's precisely, that's what the
Sure.
old Board of Health record showed.
Yep.
I don't know, because I
Yeah, I
got
see
fairly
where that's
close
at.
to there, but
Mhm.
that's the best information that I have.
Okay.
I feel it's a little bit, the
Alright.
location that it's in is the most viable for the site.
Mhm.
It's a interesting and unique site. So,
Is that old growth, do you think?
it kind of goes down to the railroad track, it's very steep going down
Yeah,
and.
you get the railroad right here, and
Mhm.
it is very steep.
Yep. Amy, what are your needs for us for this?
Well, we can't close.
Right, because
Yeah, so I think maybe if you have any conditions you would want to apply, you could discuss those tonight, and then maybe you wouldn't have to come back for the closing. When do you go to Board of Health?
I'm not sure. I don't know when the next meeting is. I just have 4 items to adjust
So
on.
we meet on April 23rd and then the 14th. So you'd be advised to potentially keep it open until you have your Board of Health and certainly your DEP number.
So should it get continued to the 23rd in hope that by then I'll go through Board of Health?
Right,
and
if
get
not,
a
we
number,
would
and
then,
if not,
we
extend
would
it
just
2 more
automatically
weeks?
put it to the 14th. I don't have any questions on the plan.
And actually, the only condition I'd recommend, it's not a jurisdictional area, but that those ruts in the isolated wetland get smoothed out. It's in the buffer zone, so.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I was planning on,
Restoring
Haven't
safe
done.
conditions.
Oh, ruts that were made by,
yeah,
When
some
they're
other
doing the
holes
testing.
were dug in this knoll, very good soil over there, but the machine went right through. I had walked up to the house to speak to the owner and the brother and the back cooperator did that. I would not have had them go through
It could have
there.
been frozen at that point.
But There was.
You stop
Yeah.
watching them for a second.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Amy, do you need this plan that's colored? or-
No, you've got a colored one.
Good. I think we're all set. We wish you luck with your variance and your approval.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Then probably the number will show up tomorrow.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's usually what
Yeah.
happens.
Yep.
Thank you.
Amy, are they coming in for 41 to have
Yes, they are. Well, okay, I assume they are.
Some people not.
I'll put it that way.
5 minutes later.
That
Yeah.
does. Did you sign it?
Not yet.
Or you can do that on your way out, or?
we're a
do it
little
now?
bit early still.
While we wait for the clock to tick down.
Open it though.
We can go to other updates. You have anything, Amy?
The only other update I had was to let you know that the Concord Water Department, and Corey probably wants to hear this, or knows this too, wants to put in a couple monitoring wells while while Littleton's doing the pump test. And she's not certain if they're gonna be in the buffer zone or not. It is a minor.
Limited activity.
Yeah, it's limited activity, so I was gonna tell her, fine, as long as you're outside the first 50 feet. And they're gonna be doing it from the road, it'd be a 2-inch monitoring well,
Yep.
temporary, so.
Yeah.
A push one?
Geoprobe. How deep do they need to go?
I didn't ask.
Okay. Probably not a geoprobe if it's deeper than 30.
If the
Laboratory.
water
Oh,
department
Simoger.
figured out how they're gonna handle the water.
You'll be hearing about that at 8:15
Ah,
or so.
Yeah.
You're here for, the Hatton Road?
Yes, sir.
You can give us a brief overlay, and if somebody comes in, you're gonna have to repeat it.
Just because we're starting 2 minutes early, but,
2 or 3 minutes.
We'll go-
Wait 2 minutes, I don't have to go through this whole thing again.
so if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Tom O'Driscoll, I'm from ABC Cesspool. I have a plan here to show why we have to get into the buffer zone with the fill. There's a 10-foot drop from the start of the breakout to the bottom of the base of the hill. So the fill has to be brought out further to make the 3-to-1 slope. And this shows right here how far we're coming into that buffer zone.
The buffer zone or the 50-foot? Where's that?
From the wetland flags, right here will be 85 feet. Over here, we're gonna be 75 feet. Down there will be 80 feet. That's what the breakout fill.
And who did your flagging for your wetlands?
Tom Tidman.
Okay, and those were done recently?
Those were probably done a few months back. Let's get the date on there. No, I didn't put a date on it, but the flags were done, I'd say, what was it, October when we were there, when testing?
So no snow cover?
I'm the owner, by the way, Yellow Sage.
So no snow cover when it was done?
No.
So you mean the slope is gonna extend into the 50?
Within the 100-foot buffer zone.
It will not be in the, it'll be 75 feet
It was
away.
like the closest is
Oh, I
75.
thought the
The
75 feet
10-foot
before
drop from
extended.
here to the bottom of the hill But we gotta carry out the Graco fill with the poly liner.
So is this new construction?
This is a repair on his septic system at his house.
Repair.
He has a septic system
Yeah.
that's been backing up.
Gotcha.
Do you have Board of Health approval?
Yes.
Okay.
I just have to come and explain why we're going into the
Yep.
buffer zone.
I've already got
Yep.
Board of Health and stamp this with it.
How do we know that a Board of Health is approved?
Board of Health was
Do we get
there
a
when we
list?
did the testing.
Okay.
The same way they know if we've approved, we don't.
Okay.
How co-
Yeah, I mean, we're
But
75
but
out
it
and
does-
not 50.
It does mean
but-
that if he has to make any changes and we close it, he's got to come back in.
How close to the wetland is the toe slope?
On the wetland right here will be 85 feet from the wetland flag there, and be 80 feet from that wetland flag, 75 feet from there. All up here, the wetlands are down this way.
Is it already
Not that way.
Take care of it. Would you want to have your septic system not done
Oh, no, no,
properly?
no, I'm not, I'm just
It's
saying.
Yeah,
already,
and-
there's like maybe one tree that needs to come down. That lower plateau is lawn, it's already
It's,
flat.
yeah, it's a flat spot.
So it's not going into, upland woods
No,
or
and
anything.
it's, at the base of that hill, there's also, as well as these, soil erosion barrier, there's also a stone wall already there to stop any dirt from going any further past that.
Yeah, I stopped by the site last week sometime.
Okay. I mean, we're outside the 50, it's a
Sounds
repair
good
of an
to me.
existing
It's a
system,
repair.
I'd be in
I
support.
think we're good to approve
Yep.
it. Just as a reminder to make sure that we are notified that you do have Board of Health approval and you put your erosion controls in first, and before you do anything else, call Amy, come out to get inspected before you start your work.
All right?
I'd like to make a motion of a negative determination of applicability for,
Do I hear it?
where am I?
You made it?
Yep, so
She's
it's.
still talking.
41 Tehadawon Road, U3420 for septic system repair.
Yep, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming in. Amy, do you need another plan? Are you good?
Nope, I got 2 copies.
I
One
got
of
it
which is
sitting
covered.
here if you want one.
Okay, good luck.
All right, thank you. Folks, have a good night.
You too.
Thank you, too. I just asked about the Board of Health thing, because it seems like there's a volley
Yep.
sometimes going on.
There definitely is, and sometimes the Board of Health is asking the same question.
Yep.
How do we know the ConsCom's on everything? And
But they also-
Jim Gruffy says, well, because Amy told me so.
Well, yeah, if you, well, and that's the
Right,
thing,
well,
like, if you're
that's your word.
specifically
Yeah.
told, I'm just wondering if we can,
But they can't
They
proceed
are-
without both permits, so.
They also
Right.
approve septic systems very close to wetlands too.
Right.
Much closer than we would probably like.
Can we go back to the bylaw
Someone being
regulation
misled.
review for,
and being misled.
Well, did you want to finish the filing
There's
fee
no
review? Was there?
coordination.
well,
It goes back to the whole
back
thing
to
in
the
the
final
town,
fee.
is
Sure.
everybody's doing their own thing, there's no coordination.
So
We need coordination.
coming back to the RDA,
That was
I just
what,
feel it
what's
might
your name
be
was.
still disproportionate to the amount of
Aaron,
work
that's what it's supposed to be.
that's
my job.
driven by it.
Make sure
That's right
everything
in
was
the-
coordinated,
Okay.
So
but she was hired for that job.
any of them would increase, I would encourage that one.
The what
You could
crossings?
always, the first, the RDA. So just because of the time consumption and numbers that we receive. And after after a year, you can come back and do the kind of analytics on this and see how many have come in and things like that.
well, Acton's the only one, it's, Foxborough's 100. That's just a 50 to 100.
Colton's higher.
How much higher?
I would only go to like probably 40. You know? So Amy, the modification that's on is for the RDA proposed.
Yep.
Does anybody have any other questions?
So that's up to 40?
Set to 50?
50.
50, sorry.
The other categories that are outlined. Anna, you had a question on one of them?
So category 2
Yeah.
is construction of each single-family house
Whether it
including,
be,
including the activities that's in the buffer zone, including the activities that go with it, like the septic systems. A
including
parking lot
multiple
of,
developments too, right?
construction of each single-family home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to put a pool.
The parking lot of any size, beach nourishment,
Any activity.
construction of
Yep.
each crossing for a driveway associated with an unattached single-family house, a point source discharge, control of nuisance vegetation. Yeah, I was very bare bones in what I wrote over here, but
So that means like if somebody wants to put a swimming pool in, anything within the 100.
that would be a category 1,
That's
work on
one.
a single-family lot.
An
So that-
existing, so that's an
exactly.
existing home that has.
Mm.
It could be site work without a
Okay.
house, so maybe the house is outside the buffer zone, but they want to put a pool in the buffer zone.
Oh.
So maybe one should.
So if
go-
someone came in with a 3-lot subdivision, it'd be,
Yeah.
under the DEP file, it'd be
I
$1,500.
do want to make,
It'd be three
I
lots,
really want to have them vested.
3 times
in-
500.
Yeah.
Or 3 times,
Although,
under the DEP ones, yeah.
yeah. I actually, the crossing, is there a way to make that its own category? 'Cause
Category
even-
4,
Well, I know, category 4 is each crossing, but crossing for a single-family home, that's still a lot of, that's like quite a bit of work still.
it is, and it's not that much less work. That means starting to tease it apart from what the DEP,
Oh, so you're trying to
Ones
marry it, so
are.
just try to marry
Okay,
it. That's fine.
yeah, so, that's fine.
Right, I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
the one
Yeah, that would
thing I
get
was
messy if we
thinking,
try to.
Oh, yeah.
maybe you could add a multiplier for something that is for work in the 50-foot, that needs a waiver.
Yeah.
No,
Um,
we-
Which would mostly be category 2 and 3, I think.
mhm.
Maybe times 2 for a waiver?
Oh, making that consistent with
I don't know if you need
What'd
it
you say?
times 2.
What were you thinking?
I'd put also the request for the extensions where that hasn't moved. Similar for the RDA,
So make it 50 for a single-family home?
right, to be consistent.
And how would,
Because you still have to verify, they still have to record it, you still got to make
Right.
sure you get the recordings.
yeah,
Yeah, it's,
More site
it's
walks,
tough.
it
Some would be very
extends.
easy, like the church, but, 2 of us went out there and looked at it. Some of them, like
Yeah.
Kimball Farm, whatever it was, it's like, oh my God.
Still have to go
it's a
on.
lot.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of work, so
Well, and
you
it's, yeah, it's
kind of
more.
even it out.
Mhm. I am interested in going back to the multiplier for the crossing. So that would be within the 50, I guess, if that's a mechanism to
For
capture.
2 or 3.
For category 2,
It would probably be for category 2 and 3,
doing
potentially.
okay. Doing
So that would
a
mean something
multiplier.
like Workers' Credit Union
Mhm.
would have paid a premium for work in the 50-foot, for needing a waiver.
Hmm?
It will also mean that someone who is doing a septic system and needs a waiver
Yeah.
would need to pay that extra,
Mm.
That's-
which is why I didn't
that's
quite finish it.
different.
But-
Yeah.
But it's still,
Can we
Yeah,
make an
I don't-
exception for septic
well,
replacement?
actually, because category 1, I'm sorry, that would fit into category 1.
Okay.
That's why I was going to skip category 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I agree, I don't feel like, I
So are you
think septic
looking to
replacement
amend
is.
any of those in 2 and 3?
I'm just wondering about, could we do, multiplier, I guess the way to get it would be, like a crossing would be within the 50, so a multiplier for our specific bylaw.
Yeah,
Time.
it would be, it would be like, if you're working in the riverfront area, you multiply the fee times 1.5. So it would be the same
Right.
thing if you need a waiver, you multiply the bylaw fee,
Yeah,
not the state fee,
okay,
times 1.5.
Okay.
okay.
All right.
Or whatever amount you think sounds right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have
For
a
like
thought
2
on?
by 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
She thought by 2.
that's a lot of work.
Okay, fine. I'm cheaping out.
That's unreasonable.
So what I'm
Multiplier
hearing
by
is that we
2.
have 3 amendments to what's been proposed. One with that multiplier of 2 that we just discussed, and then the RDA to 50 and the CAT 6 to 50. No, sorry, the. not-
Extension.
The RDA,
extension.
the extension,
Yep.
and then the category 2, 3
Correct.
multiplier.
For 2, times 2, or 1.5?
2 times 2?
Times 2. Okay.
So let's make a motion of that so they can,
Does this have to be approved at town meeting or just a select?
Just the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Somebody want to make a motion
So I'll make a motion to amend the RDA proposed fee to $50, to add multipliers in categories 2 and 3 for work within the 50-foot no disturb, according to our bylaw, and the request for extension for a single-family home to 50.
Well, it'd be for all the changes.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus the ones we
Yeah, I was
discussed
listing,
tonight.
I was
Yeah.
listing them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, second?
to? All those in favor?
Aye.
So I am still hoping to get on the Board of Selectmen agenda. So maybe we can discuss this at the same time with them, or at least give them a heads up that it's sitting there ready to go.
Yeah,
Yay.
Yeah.
okay.
Well, Still got 5 minutes to,
Well,
So, oh, she's not here.
The discussion for the well, for Cobb Pond, Mark Corey's well. Is Amy okay with that, to open that?
Amy's fine with that.
sure.
Sure.
It's a continued, this is, and
Can
this is
pull another
just,
chair up.
just a discussion, because you already approved the extension, so this is just sort of a
Yeah, so
it's not a
la-
public meeting or hearing.
Right.
the last time I described, well, you guys granted the extension to the order of conditions for the Cobb's well development, and I described the minor change in the location of the discharge from the pumping test, and you asked that we do an impact analysis. So we had Ty and Bond do that for us. Did you all get a chance to look through the memo that they put together? Okay. I think, well, you guys can jump in whenever, but I think, this is David and Tom, by the way. Ty and Bond. But I think tables 3 and 4, pages 5 and 6 are really what drive home the key points that, even with the additional flow from the wells, there's very minimal difference in stream flow downstream. Under the Q50 flow conditions, which is the flow that's exceeded 50% of the time, you see 2 locations where there's old abandoned check dams, where the water level goes up an extra foot. And that's the most significant increase you see at all downstream. And then under the 2-year flow conditions, there's essentially 0 difference in water level, even with that additional flow added, because that 2-year storm flow is so large. So essentially, they have graphs and tables in here that kind of depict the scenario, but there's really no flooding concerns at all, nothing like that. All the culverts are adequately sized.
Right, so you've obviously been out on site numerous times. Were you surprised to see that there were not going to be any impacts potentially? Because I, as a layperson, certainly looking at some of your numbers, was surprised.
We weren't particularly surprised, I'd say,
Okay.
especially when you think about the large storm flows.
Okay.
So, in general, for example, for this site, the 2-year storm's over 5,000 gallons per minute.
Okay.
So it's a much larger flow, and that's, the 2-year storm generally is, around the bank or lower, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
So with a flow so much lower than that, we would expect it to be kind of, within.
So you're
within
saying
the channel
under the
range.
2-year kind of storm flow. So my questions are, I only have a few, and that is, and for me personally, it's been, my experience with this is when we've done drawdowns or things like that, that we've always had stopgaps. So when things weren't going as planned, we always had kind of like a stop button. That's one of my questions. And then the other is particularly where I had seen where CUP, in terms of being agriculture and crop driven, how can we assure with Mother Nature raining and also us basically turning on the floodgates at the same time that we're not going to impact? And if we do see that there's an impact, what's the resolution to him if all of a sudden we wipe out someone's crops? So those are my 2 questions for you.
Well, I think the 2-year storm flow, when they do that model here, you can see the stream never leaves the banks, so there isn't going to be any flooding. The amount of flow, like David just mentioned, that we're adding is minor.
But is that an area that has a high water table?
not particularly, I don't think. I mean, over in the wetlands area, obviously, yeah. But, you know, once you get out over into their fields, you know, it's a couple more feet in elevation up from there, so.
Okay.
You're talking about like right after?
Right after, yeah,
Yeah.
the cut property's that big
Right.
farm field there.
Yeah.
So,
Right out in here.
Yeah, down this area here, yeah, before you get to Great Road. So, I mean, yeah, we don't expect the stream flow to leave the banks unless there was, you know, a hurricane came through or something, in
I would
which
think
case.
the
we
potential
would-
of it would be highly likely if you're doing it for 15 days. It can't possibly absorb all of that.
Well,
I mean, so in general, I think it's easier to kind of imagine the stream as more of, you know, a moving system as opposed to a pond, because if it was just flowing to a pond, you know, the pond would definitely fill up. The streams are kind of constantly just moving water through them. So, you know, even though you do have a lot more water, it's kind of it's just continuously moving downstream.
At a constant rate, too. I mean, that's the idea, is that we're gonna start off at a constant, at a constant rate. We, you know, depending on how other things go during the test, we might have to back down, but we wouldn't be increasing, the flow rate
Right.
higher than the 750.
yeah.
Now, you
So
mentioned a
it-
check dam.
Yeah, go ahead.
A check dam that it would rise a foot higher at that point? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
There's two, like, abandoned check dams on the cut property.
Can you show us where those are?
Yeah, they're called out on their labels.
They're not really dams, right?
No, they're old, there's old concrete structures that, there's like, you know, they come in and then in the middle of the stream channel it's wide open, so it's just narrower there, so it just kind of backs up water a little bit right there.
I see.
Sure, yeah, and so I think it'd be the structure we're talking about
Yeah.
here, the stone masonry.
Right here, so it's,
Culvert, and the concrete stop log structure.
so they're all within, you know,
Those two labels.
between the discharge and Great Road.
I vaguely
There,
remember
there.
Downdale having issues down there and in what year.
Well, but isn't that where he's saying that is where the lower
Yeah.
paddock is before it crosses under?
Yeah.
When- If there's a check dam, that's gonna allow the water that's contributed from your pump test to keep it a foot higher for the full 15 days with it. I mean, I understand it's moving, but if there's something there that's like,
Yep.
I would envision it
Yeah,
would
where it
keep
takes
it
kind of a bend
at
there.
that 1 foot above, and then you're gonna get conductivity
one's
through
more of a
the,
check
I
dam,
don't know
that
whether
one's
it's a
more of
gaining
like a
stream or a losing stream
field
hydrologically,
culvert
but I
or
feel
else.
like,
Because this is where it's super
you know,
wet
you
anyway.
could start pushing it out through,
This is where the
you know,
signal
into
is.
groundwater. I mean, I don't know how high
Where
the
the
surrounding
water
area is, just something to,
all hangs out
like if
anyway,
there's
even
a structure there to
in the
keep it
middle
a
of
foot
winter
higher,
time.
that could have,
This
Yeah,
is
and-
the
an
one I
impact.
don't
I
know.
guess how we were considering it is that the difference is at most a foot, and that's kind of during base flow.
okay. And so by your experience on site,
So on average, it looked like it was gonna be quite a bit less. I think it was like 0.2 feet. So just, you know, I guess for me, when I think groundwater, I always think in terms of hydraulic head.
yep,
So, for, yeah, worst case scenario, a foot higher, but generally, you know, 0.2 feet. It just
Yeah,
doesn't-
laterally.
It doesn't seem like the gradient's gonna be high enough to really
Yep.
increase how much you're gaining or losing.
Right.
At least it is from what
Okay.
we've seen.
So I guess the historic of us just seeing this area over the years and kind of growing up here is that this area is always wet.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
this, because it's not an area that we go see often, but that is certainly where Delldale kind of came down. So I guess my question is, you know, what happens if all of a sudden that does start to get oversaturated and doesn't have the ability to keep flowing, because it does channel to then get underneath the road to then keep going out to the kind of marshy area.
Well, if it does get to that point, it'll be because of nature, not because of us. I mean, based on this model anyways, because we're adding 0.1 feet and to the 2-year storm. I mean, so if there was a 5-year storm, there might be some flooding, but it would have nothing to do with us. It would be just, there was a 5-year
Okay,
rain
but
event.
Well-
let's look at the combination. We have to be the
Yeah, we
devil's
have to-
advocate
we-
here, is that if
You
we
have to look at the
have
combination.
seasonal, you know, intense storms that happen often here, we need to know that we're we're not at that capacity. And so another question I have is, have we walked the for the better part of the stream itself, obviously with all the storms that we've had and all the debris and the trees that are down, do we know that you've got a clear path?
We were just
that-
out there 2 weeks ago. We can go
2 weeks
again.
ago, I mean, the trees fall every day.
Yeah, we can
so
go out
there are
again.
hangers in the woods, so, but you would have what we would consider a pre-construction, somewhat of a meeting that we'd have assurances that someone has actively walked that path to make sure, you know, not that a beaver would like that area, but that would be.
Yeah, we could do that, and then if there's any obstructions, like, we can
I've
take care
seen
of it.
more trees in wet areas down this year than I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Everything's
yeah.
Saturated and.
Yeah.
Also, we could do it during the step test too, make sure
Right.
everything's flowing fine during the step test.
Carl, how close does this come to your place?
It's on the opposite side of the street.
Yeah, but it's all
Yeah, but if the water
coming your way.
goes
It has
down,
to-
down across there.
It's a pretty good distance
Yeah, it is a good distance, because it has to go through the whole wetland down at
to get.
Cloverdale, right?
Yeah.
Through that, and then
Down across
Yeah, quite-
Chrisville.
be quite a ways
Where are you?
off Woodridge, behind.
Just point to him, Carlson, yes, where the Cloverdale is. The green circles are,
Now I'm gonna find it. Yeah, okay, so that's Snow Drive.
we're
going
going back
down.
to preparedness,
So
when we
down,
look
yeah,
at
so it's down here.
statistics.
The stream,
What
and they go,
storm have we run?
the stream is
test
back
through?
here. Right there's
So
the
like
stream,
when we
there's the
have,
stream.
not just a 2-year storm, like an event, or back-to-back where we've had, 3 days in a row where it's raining. Look at the storm that
Yeah.
you had in July.
Yeah,
here last year,
3.76
where-
inches.
in-
But I think
in
their
less
point
than-
is that you're still gonna get that flood, but their addition to the flood is.
Right,
Tiny.
so these numbers are the combination of a 2-year storm and our flow, and our flow only adds 0.1 feet. So if you get a storm bigger than a 2-year flood flow, our contribution's gonna be even less. It's
Yeah.
gonna be
As you-
approaching 0% change.
So
you know?
what storm, or is there an event is there a storm that all of a sudden kind of like makes you
Bobby's
stand up
Ranch,
and
the
go,
horse
oh,
farm.
this could impact it? So what,
Yeah,
at
like,
what
we need to
point
stop
would that
contributing
happen?
to this.
3 inches
So-
in a couple hours?
The bigger the storm, the
Oh,
less
yeah.
of an effect
Less
it has.
impact.
That's the whole-
Yeah,
that's the whole
so
thing.
it almost, I mean.
Yeah.
And what about
Okay.
consecutive, if you were to have a week of rain?
And the
Well, if there was
Bobby's
if
Ranch,
there was
the
like a
horse
hurricane or
farm,
something, if there were
yeah.
major, like, yeah, we could rain, then DEP, for other reasons, DEP would tell us to postpone the pumping
Yeah,
test,
you
because
know
they want us
what
to
it
do the
is.
pumping
Yeah,
test
yeah,
under
I know where
other
it is.
conditions.
So that's good.
So that would be kind of
So
takes
what are
the,
the
that's
stopgaps,
the horse
like, so
farm,
that's,
yeah.
that's great
Okay.
information to
Another
know.
horse
What are the
farm.
other
That's cool.
ramifications, or not ramifications, but what are the other situations in which DEP would
Yeah, they're up
encourage you
there.
not to run it?
We can't, once we start, we can't shut down.
yeah.
If
well,
a hurricane starts, you're gonna
Well,
shut
right, I
down.
mean,
That's
it's
what
something-
I'm
it could-
You'd have to
asking.
conditions like
stop
that,
that, yeah,
but-
yeah.
Harmony
DEP needs the test to run for 15
Harmony used to
consecutive
be,
days, they don't allow
it's
any
across
stops in
from
it.
the show
So
skier.
once
So you'd have to
Start.
start over, but.
That's it.
Yeah, so once we start, we're gonna go for 15 days, unless
Powers
there's
Road.
some huge storm rolls in or something like that, then they.
Or extreme
Or
flooding,
flooding, or public safety issue.
Yeah, if something like that happened, but
You're
based
gonna
on this, that
monitor.
won't happen. But obviously, we'll be monitoring the whole
Because
thing,
we
so.
know there's an issue with the grist mill. The septic systems are very close
Mhm.
to the,
Yeah, once you get,
Oh, yeah.
once you get down to grist mill, our contribution is negligible, because there's more and more flow the further you go downstream, so there's no major change down there.
What would be hypothetically the closest septic system that you think, if there were to be an impact, where that would be located? I'm sure
There's
you've
really,
said- I'm sure you've said
there's
that.
no septic systems anywhere near the stream between Cobb's until we get all the way down to,
before it goes into grist mill.
All the way
yeah,
past
down
Cloverdale.
towards Grist Mill, that would be the closest one, but by then, there's already so much natural stream flow that we're not changing water levels down there at all, really.
And flood storage as well, stream storage.
Have you, I guess one thing, kind of to Sarah's point too, with monitoring, have you looked at the logistics of where you can access different points downstream so you can like monitor during pumping, like further downstream? So you're not like walking miles of stream?
Yeah,
Are
we
there
can-
roads you can get
So
to? or-
stations, so they've got
Exactly.
preview stations.
Yeah,
we're
if not,
working
it-
kind of in concert with the
You- okay.
the Cup property owner, so we can get through that property and access anywhere on there. It's pretty easy. They have a road that goes through
Okay.
the property, and we can.
But I'm
just
talking
walk.
about like downstream near the check dams and farther,
Well,
like farther downstream.
Those check
Those
dams
are-
are on the Cup property,
both
but
on
yeah,
the
we can get
back.
down,
Okay.
obviously, Great Road access, and then down to
Yeah.
Grist Mill, and then there's, in between there's the conservation land we can walk out into.
Okay,
And then, once you get to Grist Mill, there won't be any impacts, but if we see something, we can go
Well,
for
You
that.
can go and knock on a door or something and ask, or,
10 day out. 10 to 8 days out is where you're gonna
yeah.
see when stuff gets saturated, that's what I would.
Yeah.
How rigid are you? Do you have to stay to the start date? So when do you set the start date, and is there flexibility based on weather forecast?
No, I mean, the start date's June 4th, and it's when it has to start. There's no flexibility other than if DEP says don't do it because of weather conditions. That's the only, and then that would just be delayed a week or whatever they determine, you know.
What's the driver of the start date for E DEP?
For DEP, they require that this pumping test be done between June and September, so it has to be somewhere in that window. And then it's a $500,000 project, so the
Yep.
contractor has to know what date to start on. They
Okay.
don't have any flexibility. If we told them we
Who's the
can't.
contractor,
Well,
besides these
The
guys?
yeah, Mars Services are,
Okay.
these are the
Well, you
engineers.
get, yeah, no, you get a subcontractor, I definitely understand that
Mars
process.
Services already under
Okay.
contract to start on June 4th, so
Okay.
if we, on June 3rd, said, hey, wait, we can't do it.
We're gonna get a
then-
hurricane in June.
then we would lose $300,000, and they wouldn't be able to come back until next year probably, so that's
$300,000?
how much they get paid, yeah, and then the other $200,000.
So you would have to, and they can't reschedule?
No,
Lose
not,
all
it's
the
not a
money?
15-day
Make
pumping test
insurance.
like that. It's the enormous amount of.
This
Right.
is all,
It's
this
a
has
lot
been in
of-
the planning for
Yeah,
more
no,
than a year,
yeah,
actually.
yeah.
The
No,
amount
and
of
I'm just trying to
equipment they have
understand
mobilize
the,
down there,
yeah.
and then the manpower and the scheduling for a
Okay.
15-day pumping test is pretty
Yep.
extensive.
Yeah, I didn't understand how rigid that was, because it,
Yeah.
there are many large projects that get rescheduled because of outside
Yeah.
factors, so.
Yeah, it would be highly expensive and next to impossible to get rescheduled for this summer.
Okay.
But I'm assured that you've been diligent to have a clause that if you have a hurricane or something in DEP values that you cannot do
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
that
they know.
that our town is at no risk for
Yeah.
losing any of that money.
Yeah, they know that if DEP tells us that we have to delay things, then they'll
Right.
stay on site until they can finish it. But,
Okay.
I think we would just like to know be involved with any pre-tests so that we're aware of that and where the staging sites would be.
Sure.
And my only concern is those two areas with the check dams that are older, and if the water does make it down there, it's gonna flood.
That's going over 2 ways.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen, but yeah, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. We're not just gonna let, 1,000,000 gallons a day go down and not watch it, so we'll make sure that everything's under control.
Okay, so Amy, what are your needs are?
I guess maybe just approve the pump test as has been laid out by the, yeah.
I would make a motion that we support Littleton Water Department with their testing to start on June 4th and run consecutively for 15 days, utilizing Mars Services under the guidance of DEP.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Hi,
Good luck.
thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks for answering our questions.
Sure.
And Corey, I assume you know that Concord Water wants to put in some monitoring wells? It sounds like you've been coordinating.
Did they contact you?
Yeah, Melissa just called me to see if
Okay.
they need any
Yeah, I knew they
permitting,
were
so,
looking at doing that, so
Yeah.
it's gonna be on their property.
across the street, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
All right,
Okay,
great,
thanks.
Okay, 8:30, continued public hearing notice of intent, 73 Howell Ave. We're a couple minutes early, but if you.
You're 1 minute early.
Mm.
Huh?
Yep, 1 minute. Come on up,
Okay,
let's
come on up.
start.
And that is,
Glenn
R
Berger.
17-57 Mass DEP file number 204-859, construction of single-family home.
So we've come to the relative conclusion of the ConsCom paperwork. We're waiting for a test from the Board of Health. It's going to happen this week. And then we'll have a Board of Health meeting, and then we'll be back to kind of wrap things around. I have an updated plan, but it just shows septic system, basically, the reserve and the primary in the same general area. Nothing's changed with the house or anything else. If everybody-
The
would like to
septic
look-
moving?
Hmm?
So the septic's moving?
So we submitted this last time, saying that the reserve area overlaps the primary area. So Jim DeRiffy wants another test,
Like test pitting?
a pit, yeah.
I think you may have addressed this earlier, but I don't recall. What variances are we seeking?
And none now.
None. Okay.
So we didn't give any new notices or anything.
Okay. And the testing will occur when?
I think it's Thursday. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's this week.
So we meet again on the 23rd of April. Do you anticipate?
That sounds good.
Okay.
So if there are no other questions about this, I think we want to get into what,
Did you want to see if the audience has any comments on this particular application, 73 Hartwell? No. We're getting it.
so when we submitted to Natural Heritage, just a background on this, Natural Heritage said
That's,
that there was a missing component when we divided 2B into these 3 lots, that notification through them was supposed to be a filing through them, and that they would talk to council and find out what the right process was to correct that. Also understanding that 2 of the 3 lots are built already. Then I got a communication back, and Amy, I think, got the same communication, which basically said, whoops, it's not their purview to have approved the original division, it's the Conservation Commission's, because the Conservation Commission is the grantee. So, I didn't realize that. I guess Natural Heritage didn't realize that, and the Conservation Commission didn't. Nobody realized that that was the process. So, we need to kind of resurrect that and look to seek approval of the Lot 2B into the 3 lots. So,
Amy has kind of painstakingly gone through
That's a nice word
Yeah.
for it.
your,
the minutes.
Yeah.
History.
so I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to
Yeah.
see that, Mr. Berger, and if you have any questions or comments on her outline, if you kind of deem this as accurate.
Yeah, it seems like it's accurate.
Yeah, so the funny thing is, you did have this discussion back in 2005 or something like that. But as far as I can tell from the files and minutes, it never went in there. Ian Gunn was gonna talk to the town attorney about it, and then it just dropped again. You had sent the letter to Natural Heritage requesting amendment to the CMP for the subdivision, and in that letter, I think that was in 2005 or 6 or something, you said, this is being copied to the ConsCom, because the ConsCom needs to approve of the subdivision as well. And that was kind of
This
what,
one right here.
it is, I can't tell if it went anywhere or not. I'm trying to get in touch with town council and see if they have any files on it. And so I don't know if Ian followed up on it or not. It dropped off the minutes at that point.
So that would have referenced in 9/12/2005. And then
Yeah.
we note that on 9/30, there was a recorded subdivision plan with Lot 2 divided into 2A-1 and then 2A-2 and 2B, but doesn't show final property lines for 73 Hartwell.
So, yeah, the first subdivision plan that the planning board approved was that, and then the planning board subsequently, the next line down, approved another subdivision plan that did show the 73 Hartwell property lines on it.
Amy, is this the email from Misty Ann with the new lot lines. I'm having a hard time following, like, which lines we're talking about. Yeah,
Is
so
this
that's
easier?
bigger. Yep.
I have a couple of copies.
Okay.
That's easier.
But I'm trying to, this was, okay, so,
And I've also realized this is coming up in another CR that has been subdivided, but it's a different day.
So if I may,
and so is this the?
2A-2 is
Yep,
right
sorry,
in the
go ahead.
middle here.
Yep.
And she's referring to the lot lines, I believe she's referring to the lot lines bisect the CR.
Mhm.
And so that's what the okay should have been about, dividing the CR.
Yeah, so
Okay,
the
but
language.
it was not- but
the
we
language
don't
in
have
yellow on
any-
that Misty Ann thing
Yeah.
is what's needs to
Right,
be addressed.
yeah, so, okay, so that was
Does the
my,
fact that the land is subdivided make any difference to the CR?
well, that's my question, and it,
It means there's more owners, but it doesn't change the CR line.
right.
Right, the CR line
But
does
the-
not move.
Right.
The ownership of the CR moves.
Right, and the conservation restriction,
Remains in its entirety.
right.
And all of the lots remain buildable? Or doesn't really
Well, and
matter
it-
to us?
And
I guess?
I'd like to, I guess, part of the intent of it, as I'm reading it, is any conveyance of a part or portion of the premises alone, or the division or subdivision of the premises as compared to the conveyance of the premises in its entirety, which shall be permitted, that would impair or affect the enforceability of this conservation restriction on a successor in interest to the grantee without, what the heck does that say? Essentially, it makes it very difficult to, enforce or coordinate the conservation restriction when it's subdivided and you have multiple owners, we've. So that's what I'm reading, as the intent, I don't know what to make of, the meetings. We've certainly had planning board do things and then have people come in to us, and, the Cooper Farm was a really good example. They had approvals, a house moved 15 feet, and then it was an enforcement order. So I guess my question is, it almost seems like having this approval and building these lots should have been an enforcement order at the time. And so
Well, not really an enforcement order, because it's not a wetlands issue.
sure,
It's a conservation
but it's a
restriction.
CR
Some
restriction,
sort of legal issue.
right?
But,
So I'm just trying to understand,
Yeah.
because I just feel like this is
So
really,
it had
we don't
come up
have
in
enough.
2006, and it just never, it fell into the void. It never got
Yeah.
finally. And it almost seems that as if with 65 Hartwell, that was almost, there was not a formal approval of the fact that that was a new lot. It was sort of a de facto one. So sort of dealing with the same thing now with 73 Hartwell.
So if
So it's
there,
actually, excuse me, it's actually the 3 lots. Because we had 1.
Yeah,
Became
85A,
3. All 3 needed the same.
that's true, that's
the
true.
same language.
because 85A was built after the subdivision, is that? Well, it must have been.
Yes.
Yeah, it must have been,
Right.
yeah,
So all of this used to be one piece, and
Yes.
now it's 1, 2, 3?
right.
Okay.
But is it actually 3 or is it not? Because the other portion is the assessor's database says it's unbuildable
No,
due to this,
no, that's his
it's
lot.
changed.
does it say it's
It's
not
developable.
undevelopable now?
It's
So they
developable.
changed it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So the 130 refers to
Use code.
developable. And the definition on the next page, I just put correct that.
So you contacted them within the last, 2 weeks,
I
too?
went in
Oh,
the other
effective
day. and it
2019.
And it was changed already.
Effective 2019, fiscal year 2019, changed to a buildable parcel.
So of that lot, if you were to take out the area that's in the CR, it's still a buildable lot.
73 Hartwell, well, all 3 of them, yeah.
That dotted line there, the dash line. So this would
Thank
be
you.
buildable.
But we're not building in the CR area.
Right. So outside of the CR, whether it's buildable.
85
that's what you-
Wait a minute. 85A, yes, 85A had a little bit of grading in the CR that was approved by everybody. It was a septic system grading.
Right, and I'm talking the new.
But 65 and 73 will be out of it.
There isn't any grading, there isn't any touching of the CR on 73.
Yeah, 73 has sort of a wooded setback.
I don't see any 73. Where are the,
Well,
That's 2A-1.
they're not really on there.
oh.
I don't think the
Sorry.
street addresses are on there, are they?
No,
So
they're not.
two-
That's what I was,
2A-1,
well, I was
you're
looking at a
saying?
tiny
2A-1.
version.
Yeah.
2A-1.
Yeah, it's 2A-1.
2A-2 and 2.
Yeah, 2A-2,
So-
this is 73.
Lot 2B.
Almost an hour class shape. I
So-
think.
Right.
Let's dial it back to the beginning. What's in front of us now is, what is the
2A-2.
motion that is being sought at the moment?
So I think what needs to be done is that if the ConsCom agrees that this subdivision is not going to substantially affect the CR, then we, or town attorney, or somebody needs to write a letter to that effect to Natural Heritage and EEA, and I assume it all gets recorded, or something. I'm not sure
That's right.
the last bit of paperwork on it. but-
Recorded.
Yeah.
That was her note.
Presently, it has support from Ms. Deanne saying that she does not think it would impact, but the concern is that we've changed ownership of the CR.
I think she was saying that it wasn't up to them to give this, okay, it was up to
Yes.
ConsCom.
No, and I
But
recognize
yes,
that,
yeah.
I think things moved
Yeah, I don't
forward,
think she
though,
needs-
because you were interacting with them and didn't, my concern is the conversations that should have been had possibly were not, because you were interacting with Natural Heritage instead of us. That's my concern, and so my
Now?
concern is,
In
no, in 2000, whenever,
6.
yeah.
And the 2006 letter, you don't have it there, do you? Requesting that you find the changes in the enclosed updated minor, this is from 2006. By copying this letter, and this is the second sentence, by copying this letter, we are also notifying the Littleton Conservation Commission, the Conservation Restriction Grantee, that under the provisions of Section 3A8 of the Conservation Restriction, a division or subdivision of land may occur as a result of the proposed changes. So this is the letter that was in 2006, I think spurred the meeting minutes in 2006, or, that whole discussion. It just fell off in my files.
Sure.
And that's from my engineer.
Yes,
Lauren?
yes. On behalf of you.
Well, I guess the very fact that it's being divided, as was earlier pointed out, doesn't really affect the CR, except for the potential fact that it makes it more complex and perhaps makes it more likely a building will go into, or some sort of intrusion will go into the CR. But that's hypothetical.
No, it's not. It's happened a whole bunch with this development.
But that's because it wasn't outlined
Yeah.
in
Because
a clear
the
way.
permit, right, the permit conditions weren't met, exactly, the permit conditions were not met, the monuments were not put up, and
Right.
therefore, there
So
are many,
you
many
would-
people
But we
with
can-
things, so I do feel like that's not
learned.
hypothetical.
Yeah.
So we
you
can prevent that, maybe.
Right.
from happening.
I mean, and
But-
it also
but what-
says vernal pools, do we know where the vernal pool is, do we know where the habitat is, because there's upland habitat associated with the vernal, do we
Yeah,
know where?
That's all been mapped
That's
back
been-
in
okay.
1999 or something. And what
But you
Fish
can-
and Wildlife did issue enforcement letters, whatever they're called, to 51 and 53 and 65 Hartwell about the work's been done. They left 85B off the table. Basically that, now I'm not
So, Anna, getting back to you, you
Notwithstand-
can
notwithstand-
condition-
Yeah.
Yeah. Notwithstanding the failure of Black Maple to complete this condition about the bounds, the recording of the CR and the CMP in 2005 put subsequent owners of the property on notice of the encumbrances placed on their respective properties. And moreover, the failure to install visible bounds in no way renders the approved and properly recorded conservation restriction invalid.
Right.
So she's basically saying, yeah, maybe it wasn't done right, but that doesn't mean the current property owners
Right.
are.
Which is what-
Yeah, they're on the,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so let's go,
So the bound's been put in place now.
Not
All
all.
the bounds that are not disputed or
That had disputed
some
work.
work needed around them. There's 4.
That sounds right. 1,
of
2,
the-
yeah, 4.
Of the 17 or 18.
Okay.
all right, so what's the commission's pleasure to circle back around?
Look, they haven't put the bounds in.
Some are under dispute, though. Well,
Well, the first piece of action is the subdivision approved?
right.
And then the bounds, the rest of it's kind of, is a separate issue.
So, and we are being tasked to approve the subdivision because,
You hold the CR.
right,
Right.
but it's already, I mean,
But the CR remains, ownership of the CR
right.
would be acknowledged by the new owners.
I guess my other question too, my understanding, so when you first built the development, the other piece that came up back in the fall, was that there were supposed to be just some lots held as open in general and only 6,
No,
no?
Nope.
Okay, as I recall that from our meeting
no,
back
I
in the fall.
believe a Realtor passed word that this was not buildable.
Okay,
And at the time, for tax purposes, it was not buildable until we.
well, right, on that, I mean, it
until
was
we came
listed
in
as
and-
unbuildable.
Yeah. So, the whole project included many acres for the town, so there was plenty of acres set aside. But there was no
It
commitment
wasn't,
to leave anything alone. And one of the items in the Mesa Conservation Permit, it says that this particular permit involves construction of 6 residential development, as shown on the site plans, and associated grading utilities, or any other residential development that maintains the mitigation commitments required by the Conservation and Management Permit. So, you can change it as long as you're gonna respect the CR.
I guess I would also like to know the consequences of not approving the subdivision. Wouldn't that, is that even?
The consequences of not is that 85A and 65 Hartwell is Wood Under the Bridge, because that's part of the subdivision. And those houses are built, but 73 Hartwell, I guess, could not be, the subdivision wouldn't be recognized.
Wait, I can't, so when you say 73 Hartwell, which one is that?
Just this long middle one.
It's the long middle one, okay. That's 73?
Yeah. And
So-
this is
73 is in the
65.
middle there, yeah.
right, and then is this?
65.
65 is right here,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's 85A. 85A is up here.
73.
It's
Okay.
the same
This
thing.
is 85.
All right, so if we don't approve it, then 73 won't be built, but 65 and 85A are already built. So what would be the impact on those 2 properties, the ones that are already built?
Well, according to Miss Ann's letter, I think it's part of that is that they have to be approved together and recorded.
Why?
So,
Those
Sorry, go
2,
ahead.
the 65 and the 85A
Yeah,
have to
I
be,
all 3 have to be recorded.
okay,
There's a recording missing
oh,
because ConsCom, whatever happened, didn't approve that split. So
Basically
that
kind
has-
of backed into a corner.
Now, ConsCom has to approve the split.
so, but if 2 houses are already built and we don't approve a split, the houses will be on the same lot, just on one lot? In which case, that doesn't, it's not
I don't know,
possible.
think that-
I don't know what would happen.
It's already approved by planning.
Yeah, I mean, there's already,
Yeah, I mean,
There's already
so
lots.
that to me shows, I mean, it's not really feasible for us to refuse to have at least 2 lots, I mean, subdivided in at least,
yeah, the 2 lots are there, that I'd take issue with the statement that, well, these two are already built, so therefore you have to approve
I
the
think
third. And
maybe,
I'm just
and
feeling a
this-
little uncomfortable with the amount of information we have.
This would be one for the attorneys. If you don't feel comfortable with it, then 73 basically becomes a non-buildable lot, because it never should have been subdivided.
Right. That's my
Although
level
that's-
of
it's also the
discomfort with
case-
it.
Same for 85A and 65. They just happen to have houses on them now. It took
But just because
10
they have
years.
them doesn't mean we need to have another one. I don't think that's like that's not a
But-
connection, it doesn't,
for
that's not a
us-
causation piece.
I'm sorry.
I'd just like more information. I don't 100% feel comfortable approving this tonight with the level of information we have.
What
and
kind of information?
But also, but we have to know, I mean, we
Maybe
have to
planning
be
board
able to
history?
support our decision. If we wanted to say no.
Right.
We'd have to have a reason why.
Or to say
and-
yes.
And most of the reason would be
But wasn't it
impact on the
considered
CR.
unbuildable by the town?
It
In terms
was.
of the assessors?
No, it's a
It was
buildable.
until like a
originally-
month ago.
Really?
So I'd like to understand why that was and,
I
I
assume.
left it there.
Yeah.
I
It's,
wasn't ready to build it.
it would be the same thing as a lot of lots were considered unbuildable under the old Title V regulations, and suddenly they become buildable with new regulations. So it's that same thing. It's basically
So
unbuildable
that's-
until
So
it's
that's
not.
what-
is that what's happening?
Yeah, but it's not, yeah,
Not
right,
Title
but-
V, obviously,
Right,
but.
so, yep, so he just basically decided that I would like to build it, which is under his.
And if he can get the
rights.
permits, then it's.
Yeah.
But I mean, I try to get I know what else, other planning board information you
Yeah.
want. I've got their approval of the subdivision plans, which was done in 2 steps in
Do you,
2005.
do you have the documentation from, I don't even, it was like that October meeting, there was some other history that there was some agreement with the town to leave some of the land alone and outside of the conservation restriction. That's my
Probably part of the
recollection.
original
I think it was I don't know if that was the
environmental
information you
development
brought in, actually.
So the.
The other consultant that, the wetland consultant that came
The front piece
in.
of this, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
The front piece of this, across here where the lot lines are,
Yep.
I bought that parcel from Lot 2C in order to get frontage, to create this situation. So this was all part of 2B, an approved lot at the time. So this was not part of any set
But it was
aside.
one lot instead of a bunch of subdivided lots.
That's right. And
And
it
then
says, and it says in the paperwork that you
Right.
can divide again. You can do something else.
I'm just concerned that the conversation wasn't had before it was divided in the assessment of habitat, and so what impacts were there back here that were,
I think by them saying
Or
you have the
encroachment.
right to develop it,
Mhm.
it gives them the right to develop it based on
Yep.
our regulations for impact
Right.
through planning board, so.
Yep.
I understand where you're going, but yeah.
And basically, the CR line, I assume, was developed as the line where if development goes past this line, there's going to be an impact, so here's a line.
And I feel as though,
Do as you
I think
will.
we'd be in a different discussion if all of a sudden that was changing, or
Mhm.
we were being asked to do that. I think that conversation would be over, but where the CR line is not changing, and we've already built other homes, I would be more inclined to approve it.
Okay.
So
So-
if ConsCom approves it, a document has to be created and a request from Ms. Deanne to get recorded,
Correct.
so it's clear.
And I'm just not quite sure what form that is, if it's just a letter that gets recorded, I guess, or a legal statement of some sort.
Well, I think she's saying that it's the ConsCom's, is the grantee, so it has to come from ConsCom. I
Yes,
guess.
yeah, but I'm not sure.
What form it
If
takes?
we go to, if I write a letter, if legal counsel needs to do some declaration
Describe the property.
that
or
looks
whatever.
different than
Yeah.
something I would write.
I think you'd have to run it by the town attorney.
So I can, yeah.
But I do feel as though we put a tremendous amount of time and effort into this, that I would ask the applicant to be diligent and do that type of research. So he's under he would like to get it developed, he can have input on his dime versus ours to continue to carry this on.
So you like you're suggesting?
I would
which is fine,
suggest that
my attorney
as-
write up whatever paperwork
With the
has to.
support of Misty Ann to then run that by legal
Misty Ann's
counsel.
out of this.
So she doesn't want to see what it looks like?
She'll want to see it, but she's not going to dictate.
Yeah,
What it
certainly.
is.
So you
You could
could,
copy to her.
right,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you could do that and take advice from, what I'm saying is you all create that, and then we're happy to look at that, just like we do with engineers. We're not,
Sure,
yeah.
that makes
So to do
sense.
that and give that to our council and then CC Misty Ann. But we're back at the original, we've certainly spent what seems like now years as I've been
Yeah.
on this commission since this development, so would like to ask the commissioners what their thoughts are. And if someone would like to put forward a motion or where we want to go with
And I
this.
can give you some words if somebody wants to put a forward a motion.
I'd like to put forward a motion that the ConsCom approve the subdivision as pictured on the.
I would say,
plan.
as shown on
Plans.
Plan 1969 of 2005,
Plan
recorded
1969.
December 7th, 2005.
December 7th, 2000, oh, November.
No, that-
recorded.
yeah.
Recorded December, what?
December 7th, 2005.
December
We
7th,
can't-
2005.
There's no, I'm sorry, there's no way we can't leave the conservation restriction out of the subdivision? Because I'm thinking about other conservation restrictions and setting a precedent that
No,
other
the conservation restriction.
can request
may-
that we subdivide a conservation restriction. Like, I feel like there needs to be a really clear,
Well, right now, Glenn owns that
Yes.
piece.
yeah. Yeah, no, I understand that, and I,
Easily transferred over to us, that's.
I'm just, yeah. No, I'm just thinking for the 73 Hartwell piece, is there a way to subdivide 73 Hartwell so
Make
it's
the CR
just,
the property
the
line.
CR is the property line? So we don't create, I'm worried about, like, I get the situation, and I get that it's messy. My concern is we're setting a precedent for subdividing a conservation, a CR area. And
So
it-
you would ask him to donate that specific area that's in the CR that's not being used?
I think that part of the reason the CR is created on the properties is so that people know on their own property where the conservation line is, you know.
It doesn't
this
matter
would-
if
this would-
it's on their property or off. I mean, it's a
Well,
line
I'm
that,
just suggesting.
Sorry, go
that
ahead.
I think that's why the CR was created across the back of all of these. I mean, there was plenty of acreage. You could have put property lines wherever you put property lines, but Mason decided that the CR should be across the property lines.
right, but had it not been subdivided and built without the proper conversations and the proper paperwork in place, we wouldn't be here considering a subdivision of a conservation restriction area. And I don't know the answer. I don't know what precedent that sets, and I'm not.
Well, it says in
I-
the paperwork that you can divide that.
We can,
Well, and
but as the
I
town of
think-
Littleton, do we want to set that precedent? That's my question.
That'd be one more subdivision.
Right, well, yeah.
But yeah, so the new owner, instead of
But
having to worry
keeping
about
it
a CR
whole-
line, would have to worry about a property line.
Right, which is a lot easier for most owners, property line versus
But I
something
guess it
on
also
their
depends,
property.
is that lot subdividable? I don't know how big
Well, I
it
thought
is.
you said it was okay on its own. I thought we already,
Well,
thought you
No,
were
but
saying-
can
I
it
have
be
to
made
ask that
smaller?
question. No, it has 1.46 acres,
Mhm.
so it only needs
So it would be
40,000
okay.
square feet.
I'm concerned about the
Well,
precedent we
that's
set by
the-
subdividing
the
conservation restriction land.
Restriction is 16,000.
And it would be one thing if we were having the conversation holistically with no houses built. I don't know, would we have decided to subdivide a conservation restricted area?
I guess it would still be subdivided even if we did that, because it would be two chunks taken out of it on either side.
Yeah.
So
No, I know.
I think the
It's
impact
just not official.
is.
I don't know the answer. I'm
No, I think it's,
Asking.
I think it's an interesting idea, but I think that there is precedent, maybe a lot of precedent in previous transactions that have this sort of situation where you have CRs on other private properties.
Mhm.
And subdivisions.
Okay, so let's circle back around. Are we
Sorry.
asking for more information, or are we in a position where we'd like to entertain a motion?
It seems like you need to have his attorney draw up paperwork.
Well, you have to, right, but you'd have to make a motion to accept.
I've already made a motion to accept, so it's a question of whether or not people are gonna
So someone
vote
has
on
to,
it.
someone has to second it, and then we would vote on it.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any nays?
You gotta vote, people.
Yes or no?
Aye.
I vote present.
Nope,
It doesn't count like that.
can't say
Okay.
present. You can abstain.
Yeah, I'll abstain.
You abstain?
So unanimous 4-0 with an abstention. Okay, so the task is,
Figure out how to
that
do
in
it.
in order for this, this is not considered by any means complete until it is agreed and recorded.
Well, you want to see the paperwork first before you.
That's what I'm
record.
saying, attorney has to, right. So
Yeah.
come back on April 23rd or May 14th, but nothing, I wouldn't even allow transfer of ownership for the property or anything until you have that confirmed.
And nobody's, it's not for sale until all the paperwork is in a folder.
Okay,
That makes no sense anyway.
so we're gonna move. on.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Continued discussion of enforcement order 65 Bravo.
Phil Pittarino, 65 Hartwell.
What have we done and not done?
Oxbow was out today. They GPS, they flagged it and GPSed it. So we need to put that on a
You may
plan.
want to back up a step and pull out a plan, and just so for the commissioners that may not know the backstory of where we are and timing and
So
all those
here.
good things. If you want, you can maybe,
Is this the CR?
Yeah, I don't have a plan.
okay. So let's
There's,
just use-
there's a little guy here.
So if you want to
Shows
just
you.
describe where you are.
To
Actually,
the-
here you go. If you want to just highlight your lot
See my lot.
and,
This is the area we're talking about. So, like that with the grading. The silt fence got taken out with the heavy rains 3-4 months ago. So I put new silt fence up, and that new silt fence is in the conservation restricted area. And when that happened, some silt got into the buffer zone, so they flagged the limits, but in those limits, there's isolated pockets of silt with the cleanup, so they're gonna work on
so has
coming up
your
with a plan.
engineer come up with a plan of
Not
how they're
Oxbow,
going
just-
to?
They just came out today, so they're
But
gonna put those
that's not
points,
Oxbow's,
they're gonna put those points, the GPS points onto a plan. My engineer will do that.
okay, so, but in the meantime, who's coming up with the schedule of how it's going to get cleaned up prior to vegetation?
Oxbow's gonna tell me what to do, how to clean it up, what to put back there.
Okay. So, but is it stable? Because when we were out on the CR walking through, it wasn't stable.
It's not, the slope's not stable now, not yet.
Okay, what have you done to stabilize it? Have you put tachyfer on it? Are you matting
I
it?
just have the silt fence with.
So you haven't
with-
done anything in the last
Nothing-
couple
nothing's-
months? But you were
nothing's-
notified of the enforcement and the problems while you were on vacation
Yes.
quite a while ago, so you've done nothing for,
Well, I'm waiting
How
for,
many
the-
weeks?
waiting for the draft. They told me not to do anything beyond the slope. I'm gonna pull back the slope and loom that in the next couple of weeks. It's just been, everything's still pretty wet.
okay, so we work with Cooper all the time, and so we knew that storms were coming.
Mhm.
We asked them to hydroseed,
Right.
to do things so that are,
To help minimize impact.
help minimize. So I would incorporate this, that something has to be done. So it's nice that Oxbow is here and perhaps would like to chat about that, but in the meantime, you still have an unstable bank.
Yeah.
Come on up, Apparition.
He's not magical?
He is. Welcome.
How are you?
So we are here for an enforcement order discussion, which was supposed to take place quite some time ago. We appreciate that you're on site, and we'll hopefully give him guidance, but in the meantime, we have a slope that's unstable.
And Ronnie, did you confer with Ronnie today out there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I walked it with him, he flagged it all and GPS'd it, yeah.
Okay, good, yeah. We can get in there immediately and at least stabilize it, and is there material, I wanted him to measure, but I haven't spoken to him since he was out there, the, extent and depth, because sometimes, if you have a veneer that's a millimeter thick of silt, it's not
I
worth,
don't know if I have pictures, but my boots were covered in mud and silt.
Pictures I have.
yeah.
He did some,
But does
he
it,
did some cores, yes.
what's the taper, yeah.
He said it went from 3 to nothing. But
Okay.
The worst was 2 to 3.
So 3 can be
And that was right
hand
behind,
removed.
that was
Yeah.
basically right behind the
Hand-
sofa.
Hand removal, but we want to get in there before any vegetation. Continues.
If anyone hasn't seen it.
Is it hand
I don't
removal
think,
to the 50-foot buffer back, or is it?
all of it, because you're in the CR.
Okay.
Yeah, any place that's premises, I guess, is special treatment particularly. Yeah,
That's the cedar.
yeah, the stake.
Ryan, did you reestablish wetland flags at all, or?
Here,
Yeah, did he
No, I
notice
don't
if
think-
this is in the wetland, or?
actually, that probably should be back flagged if it's, you could do it, I guess, forensically, but it'd probably be smartest to back flag it, although the flags are probably 12 years old or
Really
15 years old
Yeah.
at this point. So if you think it's appropriate, we could just do it on soils basis, at least in the CR zone. See, does the original plan show wetlands right up to the CR?
No.
That's just a lot line.
Yeah.
That's where the 100-foot buffer then. So
This, the original
100
fence or the
100
second fence?
the original, the 100-foot buffer comes up to that conservation.
Yeah.
line.
See there, so substantial,
Below,
and then that's looking, so that's the fence.
Toward the house,
And it's
yeah.
going, so the house is up there, so it's substantially already back here, that far away.
Yeah. But is that, Sarah, is that a veneer down there, or,
No, that was like covered
oh, it's
all of my boot.
measurable material? Yeah.
Yeah, like almost lost a boot.
Oh.
Yeah, within the first 10 or
In
20
silt
feet
or
past
mud,
the hay
It is muddy
bales.
back there. There's a layer of silt, but it's mud.
It had
Horses-
traveled
The
all
horses
the
are
way.
walking through there and they're
No,
sinking in.
this was your, whatever you want to call that, all the way down there. So it had traveled all the way through, up and over. So that was material that came from your property
Yeah.
into the CR.
Yeah, but when he had measured today, he said it was there was some isolated depressions where it was settling, but he said it wasn't.
Yeah, hopefully
it
it's
wasn't
a
fit.
discrete channel, a discrete path rather than, 50-foot wide path.
Yeah, well, he flagged a big,
Yeah.
probably 60-foot area, but it's not, it's within that isolated,
Yeah.
as he said.
Okay, good. It
Which
just
he's
needs to
he
be.
was gonna write a letter.
What was the date of notification?
Of,
Pre-snow, right? It was right before was it December or January?
It was
No,
clear when we walked out.
were out,
Oh.
when the letter was asked for him to come in. January
No, it was
9th?
March. I thought it was March.
I thought
It'd
it
have
was
been February,
I was
end of
away.
February.
It was February.
December 7th.
Mm.
For the enforcement order?
No, that was
Oh.
the enforcement order, that was when we first started talking about, in fact, there's an issue out there.
The enforcement came in February?
I thought,
Yeah.
I thought it was later than that.
I don't know if the source is cut off here, I don't think there's much opportunity for it to migrate
It's a steep slope,
further down.
unstable.
But this is unstable here, on his site.
His,
I mean-
his hill is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that needs to be nailed down with probably jute at the toe and firming this material up. But offsite, once it's over the fence, so I don't think it's a hazard. unless I'm wrong, of it keeping moving? Because it's kind of, if you cut off the.
Once it's over the fence, it's fairly flat in
Yeah.
there. So if stuff keeps getting added, it's gonna keep washing, but, you know.
But if it doesn't get added, we
the
don't
slope
have
is
to
the-
try to contain
Yeah.
outside the perimeter is what I'm,
Yeah.
if you agree.
So what's on is stabilization to get everything out of the CR and to back up away from the CR. So I believe that the fill that was added, so that slope that comes down, you'd want to engineer to make sure that none of that is close to the CR, that it's not going to encroach again into the CR. So in terms of the fill and the slope, because it looked very close.
It seems to me that's a fairly major regrading of that slope. To
I
pull
gotta
that,
pull
to
it
pull
back.
that toe back in.
I want to pull it back.
It's already
at
pretty
that-
steep.
At that CR line, put boulders,
Mhm.
and then, slope it back on loom, and pile flower mix, that's the plan.
Right, but you can't do that on the CR land, so you're gonna have to
A
back.
couple feet back,
out.
put the rocks.
so put the rocks on your side of the.
And you
Yes.
won't be able to access it via the CR, so you have to access it on your property. So
Is that
you can't work
problematic?
inside.
Correct, no, all the work's.
Yep, so you're gonna
my
work on the
property.
top of the
Yes,
hill
yes.
and pull it back.
Yes.
So we're not allowing any more access.
Like driving in the CR.
Right, no. No. So initially, prior to your arrival, he felt as though that your firm would offer recommendations on how to stabilize it, which I feel as though he's a contractor, he knows how to do that.
Yeah.
They were gonna tell me how to clean it up and what to do to remediate.
Okay, but in the
As far
meantime.
as the slope.
And how to serve up the recipe or
Yeah.
the scheme or the plan to do the restoration. He knows how to do it, but we're probably better off at putting it in your terms for consumption and consideration.
So my recommendation is you have 48 hours. If not, I would impose fines. So we've already been after this for months to get it stabilized without you coming into meetings or being,
48 hours for what?
to get that hill stabilized. So
It's
in
not gonna
terms
happen
of
in 48 hours.
Well, I mean,
to spray it.
it's-
So,
It
but
gets
you,
Well, I was told not to do
you,
any work there until we came up with the game.
No,
plan.
you were encouraged to do some temporary stuff. And
Yeah.
you didn't want to
Well,
do temporary.
the straw
Yeah.
on the slope.
Well,
If I-
more than just that. The
can I
tackifier
pull-
was discussed.
Right, but the conservation restricted area, can I pull that material back out from the silt fence up?
no, I wouldn't, you can't do that until you have, that has to be engineered. But what we're trying to do is to have you stop your impact of what you're doing through any of these rains.
Right, so from that fence where all the mud and stuff is, I can't pull that back? I'm gonna leave that 10-foot section of mud and then do my slope over?
You
That's
have-
over the toe, isn't it?
On my side, on the uphill, so from here up, from here up.
Yeah.
If I leave this section, it doesn't make much sense, because that's gonna keep washing out. I gotta pull this all back and put the boulders and stabilize that slope, loom it and stabilize it.
Ultimately, you're gonna wanna pull this material out of here, bring it
Yes.
to whatever the native grade was. But in the process,
He's on the CR right now.
yeah, right at, that fence is right on the CR?
No,
No,
that's
it's his
the
work.
CR.
In the CR? Oh, no, I'm sorry.
It's in
that's
the
stake,
CR.
Yeah.
If you flip back, I
It's
think
just
there's a
a-
picture of the stake.
It's a 60-foot section.
One of those pictures has a stake in it, I think.
But
That's what it is right there.
So you want him to engineer this and control that, and then come up with a plan for restoration of this as a secondary task? Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Correct. I don't feel as though we're in a position to authorize you to work in a CR without a plan, but what we're asking you to do is to try and slow down the effect that you're having daily when it rains.
Yeah, so contain his side of the property from this, and then deal with this as a secondary.
And Natural Heritage
Yeah.
wants to be copied on all this stuff.
Oh, okay. Missy Ann, is it? Or, yeah. She was the one originally involved with the CR, or with the CMP, I think.
I can't remember.
Might have even been before her
We can
original.
get this, can be done quickly in
All
order
set
to.
tomorrow?
I think so.
I mean, if we get a major
do-
rain
to
too,
do
you're
what?
real,
To
you're, I mean, you know,
stabilize
you're at
that.
risk of
I
a
think-
Are you
major
planning
washout.
final
Waddle-
stabilization or temporary
No
stabilization?
temporary
Stake waddles
stabilization
here,
because he's gonna have to
and
pull
then
it back.
shoot this, or pull it back and shoot it?
I'd like to pull it back and loom it. Put the rocks and loom it and just and be done. Why can't
Well,
I
you
do
can't
it
put,
final?
I think if you can't
If it
put.
warmed up a little, we could, that would be a good scheme.
Well, it's April, so I'm hoping,
Yeah.
you know, this is the growing season, so it's been cold, but. if
It's frozen this morning.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, it's not, you can,
I mean, you're in an incredibly shaded, you've got a lot of tall trees, you're not gonna get 13-day germination on any of the seed with what the temperature of the soil is presently, I don't believe.
Every night it goes below freezing, you know, it's,
Yeah.
this
So-
morning it was 28 here.
you wanna pull the slope back and do what with the slope in the meantime?
What we're asking you to do is to stabilize what is there presently until you and your engineer this week can come up with what the plan is gonna be. So granted, you're gonna be stabilizing something that is ultimately, the bottom's gonna get pulled back up.
Yeah. So if it's, I think, I was thinking of wattle, but if we do get a.
It's very steep there, the
two-
wattles are not gonna do
Yeah,
anything.
they probably get jumped, so we probably need to just get a 60-foot run of hay bales here, stake them down firmly, I think, and then work behind that.
So just
And leave this as is.
we're leaving all this
Yeah.
there?
For the moment, yeah, right.
So we need a plan first.
Then when this is stabilized, then that can be addressed. Just need to leave an access to get to it and make sure we can get to it.
How about 2 rows of hay bales?
Super steep. I mean, you can try,
Probably won't
you
fit.
have to give him permission to put more hay bales in.
It's gonna be in the CR.
Yeah, then you're
Yeah.
going up the slope with the hay bales, I think, if we
Yeah.
double
He
it
can
up.
come up
Space.
the slope, but he can't go further into the CR.
Right,
Mm.
up the slope, that's what I was meaning, like to stabilize the slope. 2 rows of hay bales.
If you, the only thing, then that's like 5 feet of work area you can't work, you know.
That,
If you
this
put
has,
two
that, so
side-by-side
that, this
rows.
has to get cleaned up later without,
Down the
You have to
road.
come up, you have to come up with a plan, because
Yeah.
that's all gonna
The
be part of.
Restoration of that. This can be restored as like a separate task, just retest it, and this just needs to be,
But it's gonna be a
If
puzzle,
I-
because you gotta stabilize your slope in a way that you can get in there later to clean up
Yeah.
the CR.
Right, so if you
And we
put
need to
boulders,
leave
you get
access somehow.
problems.
you know, you're gonna need to get through here with, at least with a Bobcat, so you can load the stuff into the Bobcat later. I'm not sure when you work on a slope, you can't have it all just be lawn or something that you can't traverse, you know, it needs to be, just anticipate getting this strip here later and out here by hand.
so for right now, what do you guys, what's temporary stabilization for? 2 rows, what, 2 rows of hay bales?
I believe I had this one.
And a
Because
thick layer
this is
of
the
hay.
approved plan. Sorry, didn't think I had it with me. Might help a little
They
bit.
have lots of geo or
So
jute
steep,
mat.
it's gotta get
or,
matted or sprayed, or,
A geo web that you can use. You seen those?
it's gonna have to be
Well,
something.
you gotta, that goes on top of like a screen loom and put that down to stabilize the seed. What if I mulch it?
Mulch is
With
gonna
what?
wash right off.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's how
you'd have to
steep
mulch
that
it
is.
probably with like stump grindings, which you don't really want to put in there on your.
Oops, sorry.
That's
Because
why
you've got,
Absolutely.
you've got
It's
channeling
really steep.
going in it
To- to
now.
keep-
Scully.
Whatever stabilizer you're
Hmm.
using
It's,
in place.
Is there enough room for 2 rows, Phil, of hay bales?
with
That's
all the
only-
snow
my only
melt, I'm
concern.
sure there's
Put
plenty
one
of
in front of the
water
other, then
within
Yeah.
it. and-
you're going up this.
I mean, we get a big
I mean,
storm,
I can do
it's-
it, but leaving
it's
all
washing
this
out if we
here,
get a big
it's kinda
storm.
like you're putting the erosion behind all the,
You are, it's gonna have to
Yeah.
come back up, but we're just saying,
but just for now, I mean, if we took this out, stretch this down to the original loom and put some hay bales down.
you can't do that, because you're already encroaching into the CR, you have to have a plan. That's
And
what
with-
we,
I know
that's
that,
what
but
we had
it's-
hoped to come up with, you know,
Well, it's- we-
prior to
Yeah,
tonight, so.
Right, the snow, we just
Yeah.
let the snow out. and I-
So we're not gonna allow you to do work until we know that there is a plan.
How quick can you get the plan that Amy could approve?
That's based on his,
As in, drawn, do you need an engineered, like, drawn plan, survey plan, or? do
You're gonna
You
have
probably need, because this is kind of a mess, sort of a construction sequence, because you're grading right up to the CR line, then that's gonna cut off your access. So I'm not sure if you really want to let them do the final grading, if you will, until you've had a chance to really
oh,
look
I'm
at the
not,
sequence.
absolutely no
I'm
final
talking
grading.
more
All
like
I'm
now
asking for
is-
is to try and stabilize that bank. so
And maybe
you
doing
guys
something like stump
can
grindings
come
right now.
up with a plan.
It might be a temporary stabilization that's going to be useless in 2 weeks.
Oh, absolutely.
But,
I,
yeah,
I
Yeah.
think firmly. It's going to be something that's going to be modified a second time.
Temporary.
So if you run this with, maybe what my thought, too, maybe if we run one set of hay bales and have a duplicate stack, so that if it starts to top up, you could address it, immediately on site.
So
You live there, right?
Two rows tight.
Well, one row staked down in place, the other one, the equivalent amount sitting on the sideline, ready to go, if you need it. I don't know if that
I
makes
mean,
sense
what
to
we've
you.
seen on other sites is when the ground is frozen and you have the hay bales on top of it, it undercuts.
But
if it
that's
rains.
far out during the day.
Falls underneath.
Yeah, it's not frozen deep, though, it's not.
But he has
solid.
channeling that's occurring
Yeah.
already.
Underneath the frozen top, it sort of digs.
Is there runoff coming down that slope from the top of the slope?
Yes,
So is it worth maybe putting wattles at the top
absolutely.
to keep water off it, or is the runneling just happening because that slope's so long when the rain hits
It's
it?
both, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a long tail. So I can vote wattles?
Yep.
Up at the
At
top?
the top, at the
Water-
top to
water at the
slow
top.
the flow on the slope.
Whatever works.
But this is
Yeah.
still the existing,
Yeah, I know it works, but you guys willing to pull it back?
No,
I'd
no.
love to put, if I pull it back, put the rocks and pull the slope back.
yeah,
It's-
rocks is a whole nother discussion, so.
Well, and you could start cleaning out, it's, gonna take a bit to clean out, down below, and so without the stabilization, you really are at risk of a large contribution of additional sediment, and you don't want that. No, I mean, nobody wants
You
that.
could go for 3 days without it raining or snowing.
Yeah, well, and I mean,
Spring
like,
would be-
logically speaking, I get that you wanna pull it back from the end and just do one pull, like, logically speaking, I think that's
Yeah.
what you're trying to say, but without, what our position is without stabilizing the slope, you haven't cut off the contribution, and the unfortunate, the way the site is, that's your access. So that's kind of the rub, but without cutting off the contribution, I mean, you're actually risking a bigger issue.
And one at the bottom.
And
It's,
it's probably, by the looks of it, maybe you've got to address the water that's coming over the slope
Mhm.
to start with. That would, so you're not having it washing down through and then do something down at the bottom temporarily to keep it from getting any worse. I don't know whether you can divert the water someplace where it's not gonna be an issue, but it's.
Well, everything's,
it's all.
Oh, going that way.
Yeah, there's really,
I mean, I think stump grind, if you have two layers and then stump grinders in between,
you're adding, because it's gonna have to come out. I wouldn't- You either have to spray it, or you're
I'll
gonna
put
have
the
to.
bales down below, put a water up top. and
like hydro
we
seed.
can- we can, we'll go from there.
Can't
What-
help yourself, can you?
How are we gonna get the
Do it
phone
right.
calls
Look at her, she's
tomorrow
rolling up her
anyway?
sleeves.
So let's
Needs to be
come,
drawn
let's
on
come
here,
back
that'll
to,
slow it down, but we can probably write it
we've
up.
got enough engineers here that you've got a couple days. So we're giving you a couple days to get this stabilized, and you need to come up, because you are under enforcement. Let's be clear on that, and there's been no action. That the commission has to come up with a date to which the Conservation Commission will accept what this plan of future stabilization is gonna look like. This is exceptionally important because you are presently in our CR. So, this is work that is not permitted.
So by Thursday morning,
Thursday morning, it needs to be done in terms of.
temporary stabilization,
Stabilization.
On-site work, yeah.
Yeah.
which probably won't take a lot of earth moving.
Shouldn't take any.
no.
No, that'll be done.
No, it'll be
tomorrow.
placing the hay bales down, top, bottom, and getting that done, and sending pictures to Amy and to Heritage. And then we come up with a plan, which,
You should really start at the very bottom.
it doesn't matter where he starts, it just has to get done.
Well, for the final piece of it, but yeah.
Yeah.
It really needs to start.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Rain tomorrow.
absolutely. So, but then for April 23rd, if not sooner, we need the final plan.
April 23rd, told you,
What?
the final restoration plan, April 23,
Our
Yeah.
next meeting.
2 weeks out.
I would think, Phil, even if you had to go, you put the top and the bottom in And then if you find it's still an issue, you may have to go across the middle of it or something.
But you can always,
Wherever
that's the beauty of the
wherever
wattles, you can put them wherever you want them.
And that's to keep it from.
I'm gonna put that
Yeah.
up. Can I clean that slope up? Once you guys say those are good, can I clean that slope and loom it to get
No, so we have to have a construction
on
sequence.
my side of my property, on the CR of my property?
You need to come to the 23rd with what your sequence is going to be for your work. We're
So-
not allowing
Can't put
work
anything
to
more
be
on.
This
done.
week, stabilize it prior to the 23rd, have a fully sequenced and designed plan to remediate the on-site and the off-site. Is that basically the,
And look at where the water's coming from and going. So, you can't put rocks on a CR, so I know when you're thinking of boulders, you need to look at what your slope is, so that no impact can be going into the CR. So, in terms of additional water, drainage, things like that.
Well, the water's gonna go someplace.
Yeah.
It's gonna go
The water's-
straight down the hill,
Yeah,
so.
so.
The boulders are gonna be there to make
Yeah.
less of a slope. It's gonna be a one-to-one boulder, just a couple of rocks just to get the curse off and it'll
I don't know whether it needs to be terraced or something.
But that's up to him, so that's
Yeah.
the expectation that,
Why don't I plan on going out Thursday at 11?
Is today Tuesday?
Today's
Monday.
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 Today's Monday? I'll
Another
have
couple
the
hours.
hay bales tomorrow, so if you want to come out tomorrow, then.
well, it's not just hay bales, it's stabilizing the bank, so you have to use a product, whether it's a tackifer, or that's why we're allowing you to have to the 23rd. So you have to put a product on there that's gonna help stabilize that bank. And yes, it is temporary, but that's
That's what I'm
why,
asking you, so I can't disturb the slope, but I gotta.
you can spray it, or you can put it.
Spray on
you
top
can-
of rocks.
There
It's all
wasn't,
rocks.
rock that all
It's all-
slid down.
No, that's, all the silt washed down, then you
Well,
have,
then
you're left
just
with
mat it.
rocks.
Just mat it then. You can find something to tie it in, hold your bank in.
yeah,
Yep.
jute and ground staples?
Yep.
I'd be sloppy walking on it.
You got a problem, that's what it comes down to.
Okay.
Yeah.
We gotta keep going.
I mean, because if you do spray it, which is, I'm sure it's more expensive, but it's easier, you just go right over the rocks, it's gonna get lost when you do your final grading, but
Doesn't
do a
matter, that's what
temporary-
we, that's what we
Once
do
it
all.
goes there, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I spray it?
Absolutely.
I'll spray it.
And a hydro seeder, or you can get
I'll
one
get
pretty
one.
quick?
I'll get one.
probably don't even need seed, do you? Just need to put in the
Just a
tackifier, 'cause the
tack?
seed's not
Well,
gonna
yeah.
do, I mean, the seed's not gonna,
So you'll come out when, Thursday?
Thursday at 11, and then
Thursday.
I'm catching a plane, so I'm not sticking around looking at anything.
You should probably keep your eye on it during the next rainstorm.
Yep.
Make sure that it's
Friday, I think there is.
not leaching.
Tomorrow's has been canceled. Tomorrow's rain.
Oh, the talking
20%.
potential snow, spitting snow.
Okay,
but-
we
Yeah.
keep going.
50%.
All right.
Night,
Ooh, Sunday.
all right, that was fun.
9:20, request for certificate of compliance, 15 Great Road traffic improvements.
Yeah, 44 Bruce Street was continued, Cooper Farm continued, so we're,
We're at 9:20.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
15 big capital improvement. MA, Mass DEP, 204-720. Who's gonna speak to that?
Do you need me to unroll plans, or are you guys good on this one?
Unrolled plans, sure.
Yeah, great.
My stash.
We can still talk about it.
So this order of conditions were for the improvements made on Great Road and the intersection of Union Place, to create the turn lanes in front of the Boxwood Drive, the 15 Great Road project. So you had buffer zone around the small wetland at the intersection of Boxwood and Great Road. And I think that was the only buffer zone we had. Work was done several years ago. It's fully stabilized and has been stabilized for a while. We're just holding off to file both of the certificate of compliance at the same time.
And Sarah, you and I had looked at this at
Couple
least
months.
a year ago.
Yeah, this one a year ago, and then we were back
Yeah.
out
And it
months
was
ago.
fine then, and I had let them know that this was probably ready to get approved.
Yep.
But, yeah, they're gonna do it all at once. So.
Mhm, okay.
And I looked at this again, I don't know, last week, and I didn't see any changes to it.
So your request, your formal request is 204-720, which is your first, and then we'll get into Wildflower.
Right.
Correct, okay. So, anything else to add to this?
That's pretty
So I would
straightforward.
make a motion to complete the certificate of compliance for 15 Great Road traffic improvements known as Mass DEP 204720.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The next is a request for a certificate of compliance for the same location, also known as Village Green Apartments in Wildflower Meadow, known as Mass DEP 204-740. Would you like to talk to that?
I will start with the overall, and then we'll get into each of the two different developments. For Boxwood Drive, we had the initial wetlands at the intersection, which was the same as 119. We have two detention basins before the wetlands crossing, wetlands replication next to Buttercup Lane, as well as by the crossing. Brian's been monitoring that. In other words,
Sorry.
recharge basin behind what's known
I
as
have it wrong.
Building 1. And another large detention basin behind Building 3. I wrote you a letter saying that everything is substantially in completion on these roads. The one area of concern that we had was this Basin A. Cattails had started growing in it last year, and this was intended to be a recharge basin with beautiful gravel soil, so that the concern is that something had sealed off the bottom of the basin and created a perched water table.
Basin A, sorry?
Basin A, yes. That's the one on the right before you go past the farm pond and the crossing. So on March 29th, Patriot went out and we excavated the bottom of the basin. We discovered that some of the silt that was used as the impermeable core in the berm had washed in, as well as it looked like probably some of the loam had washed in. So we removed the impermeable material. Below, beautiful gravel, no groundwater, so clearly it had been purged. My recommendation was that they replace the bottom with stone. Stone will absorb the impact of heavy rain, so it won't kick the fines up to the surface and cause the scum layer. So they've done that. We've been monitoring it since then for once the weather cooperated in a positive way. So we were able to make sure that it's draining out, and that's actually draining faster than any of the other basins. So clearly the problem child has been solved. And that was the big concern here. When we walked the site with Sarah and Amy prior to that, I think they agreed everything was in pretty good shape. Brian can address the replication area. There was some concern behind building, well, I'll get the wrong plan. Wait a second.
Yeah, this one.
No, I printed them here. Sorry. So here we go, here's the other half of Boxwood. So this is the large detention basin behind Building 3, the CR areas here. The concern was behind units 54 to 56. There's stone slope coming down, and on the top of it there was some loam. It wasn't seeded and fully stabilized. They have since gone out there and they hydroseeded it today. I have new pictures taken today for the commission to see.
And do you have the new pictures of the signs? There were some sign issues. There were a couple signs that were missing.
There's one sign missing on Pete DeCarlos's end of things.
Oh.
And he actually, I'm not sure what's happened to that property back there, but
Okay.
he found the extra sign,
Okay.
and it's not
Oh.
his sign anymore.
it's not
So
his, okay.
we have a sign, we just need someone to
So I went out there today and Amy had suggested that I sort of replicate where the 100-foot buffer zone was. So what I've done is I staked out key points where it crossed, where the original, here's some more pictures to show, where it crossed the original silt fence and where it projected into the site. And I rough staked it just so that we had a perspective. And what I did, since the pictures came out hard to see, is I've circled them in red so you can see where the buffer zone limits were going. There's also pictures showing that the backyards were hydroseeded, as well as the, any disturbed areas of Basin A were hydroseeded today.
This slope going down
I
up,
gotta see which one you're
upward
talking about.
here, so this over here, it
Is
was
up-
kind of chewing away at it a little
Yeah.
bit, just because of the grade. Is that
They
better
had
now?
to shoot mat, and then they've hydroseeded it since then.
Is that gonna work?
Looking at what happened on the other slopes, I think it will. It's just a case of, we had issues with them on finding the storm scepter. It got buried at one point. And they had to, we required them to excavate it out, and make it, obviously so it can be maintained. Omni has since gone through and all of the catch basins have been cleaned. The storm scepters have been vacuumed out.
Did they get the trash out too?
Most of it. Some of it in the pond they couldn't get to because the water level's really high, with the snow melt and everything else, so they're gonna have to wait another week or two. There's a few pieces of cardboard and I saw one board, but I also saw the probably 10 or 11-year-old boys mucking through the water in the woods, so who knows if it was out and then back in with the boys. Not that I'm blaming them, but I noticed kids were playing in the woods.
So if we sign off on this, what's our tie-in to make sure that the hydroseed is gonna take, that some of these little things are gonna be fleshed out?
Well, the hydro seed is outside behind these units, is outside of the buffer
Okay.
zone.
Okay.
And we also stabilized, there's a small little drainage.
That little drain in the
that-
driveway.
And there's a picture of that in there with stone in it.
Lot 43 or.
We also noticed that on the side of Buttercup Lane, and I have a picture of that up on the shoulder above the replication area, that it was really sparse and the grass looked like it was sparse, so we had them hit it with hydro seed since they were out there, so they got that.
And the erosion controls around the basins, I approved, they took those out,
Right.
broke them up.
The only section that still has it is up behind,
Yeah.
54 through 56, because they were just hydro seeding it, and we told them he had to keep it up there till Amy approved it when the grass was germinated.
I think that one's gonna stay.
How much water did you have going down through that crossing during the really wet weather? I'd never seen it running. I was out there when you first built it. It was
Still a really
dry.
dry site.
This site has amazed me because I expected water everywhere and, I thought this was gonna be the site that we needed the mud boots plus.
Yeah, but you haven't, it hasn't
No,
come?
it's been
No,
super
but
dry.
even in previous years when we've had the really heavy rainfalls and I sort
That's
of
what I was wondering.
sent out my batten down the hatches email for the clients to pay attention, this site had virtually no problem, which
Right.
it totally took me by surprise.
Huh, it's kind of strange.
The only evidence you have of a heavy rain is water in the detention basins.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So that was never really flowing that much then? The-
I-
There's not much, the actual crossing you're talking about,
Yeah.
there's not a huge watershed, it kind of goes up to the stone wall and then
Right.
it drops the other way, so it's only,
this-
but, there was an old channel, it wasn't really a stream, but it was, you could trace where the water
Yeah.
did go, and there was somebody had dug a hole halfway up the hill at one time, I don't think to capture water, I think it was to either take a piece of granite out of there or
So,
something.
Amy, are we good
Yeah.
to let this one, is there anything?
Yeah, the grass isn't growing, but it's the grass outside the buffer zone. And it was fairly stable last time I looked at it, before the hydro seeding, so it was just, there was some little bit of rilling, so let's just make sure.
Yeah, and he put
It's got a
down
good
more of
start.
the crushed stone around some of the steeper portions around the back of the lots. But
Basin
like-
A looks great.
Yeah.
This is
Basin A got just what it
the whole area
needed.
before it was developed. This is-
We know where you guys live anyways, so.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can,
That's
but we
Chris
can
Mel.
hide.
Okay.
So,
Yep,
we
very
would
good.
request if we could get a final.
subdivision.
I would make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for 15 Great Road, specifically for Mass DEP 204740.
2002.
Second.
Both together, right? Or did we already do one?
So it's one, we already did the first one.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, what about this, who's doing the CR out there?
It's not a CR.
What is it?
Nobody wanted the CR.
Yeah, the town.
Yeah, well-
So right now it's a
So what-
deed restriction,
Oh,
and
it's a
they are,
deed
they would be doing their own monitoring.
It's a deed restriction not being held by, just being held by the,
Association or
Association, yeah.
whatever.
We tried to convey it to the town, but I remember it was at the planning board hearings, and there's kind of a lot of vitriol. One of the cries that we couldn't use ATVs on it, and it was, yeah, people were, so, and then it was
So it's self-monitoring.
a liability. Somebody was claiming a liability if somebody's working on cars up on the Carroll's thing, and the oil comes, so it just wasn't
I
accepted.
remember that,
Where would
Brian.
So no one's gonna be watching it.
where would it be?
We have been doing the monitoring in compliance with NHP to date, but once
Yeah, is it the
once
blue
it's all signed
spotted?
off, that's
Yeah.
great.
The
And
blue
we
spotted
self-policed, yeah.
salamanders?
Isn't that the homeowners association?
Yeah, that's their responsibility.
Thank you, sir.
This is current condition, right?
Thank you
Yeah,
very
no,
much.
this is
But
before
that's
it was
for
built.
these.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's the old,
Might
that's
be hour.
after the order. yeah.
Amy,
So
do you have anything else?
CR,
The sidewalk.
It's gonna be, this is
And
the
also
default.
done relatively early
yeah, the
tonight.
CR is about, kind of like here. It includes the big mound up here that's over by Bobby's
Yes,
Ranch.
no.
So the CR starts way back in the property.
Yeah, I believe it's 14
I've
acres,
seen it
and
on
it starts,
the
the detention basin is here, it starts right down.
Can I convenience?
Sidewalk?
Everyone else to Great Road.
No, no.
Can access.
No, because the frontage there is really just the, this is the tire barn.
When are we
and,
looking to do that?
the old antique house there.
And what about the vernal pool surveys? Are we gonna be doing that?
Well, and weren't we gonna,
Vernal pool, Brian just
Oh, I've been
stopped
out
when you
there.
said that.
I think,
can we reopen this to,
yeah.
So this is the beginning
Add.
of the CR.
We need an amendment to the,
I'm going out with LCT to do
For
the
perspective,
property, and I've
I
been
think
looking at.
reopen.
probably right about here is where the basin is, Sue, which is this basin.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then
Goes all the way
the
back.
wetlands begin here 50, 60 feet away, and then that all drains down. Then there's a vernal pool
Because
right in the
we would
midst
like
of
to
it.
add
In the part of that stream
Right.
drainage, right about here.
Right.
fines.
Did somebody dug, it was a test
It's
pit or
probably
something that
where
somebody
most
dug.
of the, like where you can see Hines versus the
Yeah.
the oak forest.
Yeah.
She'd like to.
And it goes all the way
reopen
down
one
to, there's
discussion
a
item, is that
stone
To the
wall.
town line.
Only if this is an
That's the
appropriate
town
area
line.
Oh, and
the
then,
top-
so that.
To
and
put
then it goes on-
about
then it goes on to
fines.
Private property.
Or, so it's not.
Then it's Bobby's Ranch.
So the issue was.
I usually
is
see
that
fines in a different place.
You couldn't
Okay.
Okay.
go
So that's fine.
through, it didn't go through onto.
All right, so we
additional
need to set some
conservation.
site
Right, 'cause
walks.
there is some conservation land out here, but
Right,
it's not
because
confluent.
Bobby's Ranch and it's private.
Well, it's- You can't do
All right.
that.
If it had gone all the way through.
So it's
it could-
basically,
Adding to the list would also be
Well,
44
private
pers,
property, probably
if you're
would've
so
been
inclined.
More track, yeah.
you mean when we just work?
Dave is gonna be out there,
Yeah.
It's a
and
tough
they
zone.
expect to be back to the
There's a lot of
23rd. I said, well,
open
maybe
space
they,
up there, It's just not.
It was,
It's not
yeah.
protected.
I want
not so.
Yeah, no.
It's a beautiful piece of, 14 acres is.
So
is
10 Fort
active, nice.
Pond is ready, they had staked it.
Yeah, I mean, I was,
There's
my
no
whole
snow.
goal with that was to get access to this.
You're gonna need
Yeah,
boots.
ultimately, it'd be nice to
You
get to
know,
the
you
railroad.
could
Get across.
go to this big, this
215 Wickham. Oh, 215
It goes
Wickham
all
is
the way
that
out to
really old
27 going this way, yeah.
certificate of
Bob-
compliance
Bobby's Ranch has
that Sherry was asking for.
1,000 feet of
I
the back
can't,
of the Rhinebrook subdivision.
Yeah.
and I was looking through the files, and I can't tell if
You
it was
know-
supposed to be a wetland mitigation area, if it was ever done or not.
protected.
oh, right, no.
But you guys said you might want to see it, so. Or I just go back out.
And
So
it's
you're
gonna be
away
by the
Thursday
Rhinebrook,
for how many
it's open
days?
space, but I don't think there's a
I'm
scenario.
not missing any.
Because this
No.
one is huge. piece of
I'm coming
wood.
back Sunday night.
Yeah, yeah, because part of it.
I'm gone Friday to Wednesday.
You
and I
around this
might have
Wednesday at all?
I might have a site visit this Wednesday. I'm still waiting for that to see if I can go to the
Right.
9 o'clock meeting.
And the other part.
If I don't have a site visit, I do. I might be at Bradley Airport doing a site visit.
Right.
And then
Then
Bobby
it goes
has
this way.
trails that go all through there.
But if not, I
Eventually
can.
it ties into Kennedy's Pit. and
The 16th?
I'm around.
It's an old railroad bit.
No.
Don't be available then.
I'm only around Thursday and Friday that week.
If you want.
But you guys
Yeah.
can certainly go,
There's
like,
You'll-
skiing in
you'll
there.
I don't
get
have to
the
put
old,
every-
US
not
Yeah.
trying to do this Wednesday while the
You said
weather's
it goes
decent.
right
I'd
to
like
Rex
to see
Lumber,
some of these
and
while
it's
they're.
there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right, that's what they've actually
Unfortunately,
made part of the
I work
Rail
really
trail.
late every
rail
day.
trail, I think.
Yeah, I never made it that far.
Portion
because-
of it.
5:30 and then get home at
I
6.
think there's another rail that's,
usually.
I don't think that's the part that goes through the lumberyard, isn't part of the rail, I don't think.
It is
You
still at
around-
like
are you
7.
around Monday?
The rail
Next
trail goes
Monday?
around the
Yeah.
back
School
of
vacation week, though?
Columbia.
Okay,
I'm,
It circles behind it.
I
I'm
think there's
doing
another
a
spur
project that day. I
goes
don't know what time I'll be
by the
home.
rail- I think there's
What
a-
about this
a long
Wednesday?
I could do
spur
this
from when it
Wednesday
was
if it's
an old
5:30.
You don't know if you can
pole
do
lumber
Wednesday,
back
though.
before Rex.
I don't-
It's a very interesting
I
piece
should
of
know
land back
like
there.
tomorrow
I
if I
live,
can do Wednesday.
Carl,
Yeah,
can
I
you do a
still
site
haven't
walk
heard
Wednesday afternoon, this Wednesday?
I still haven't heard back.
Possibly.
All right, we could split them up, we could, I could go do
Snow
215
Drive.
Whitcomb
I don't know
unless
if
someone
you
wants to
know
see
that,
it.
Woodridge
That's
Road
also an
behind.
easy,
Why don't you send
what I'm
us,
looking
you want to
for.
send us an email and tell us where you want us
Yeah.
to start Wednesday? And what hypothetical time do we want to start?
Here's Montessori
Okay.
School.
I could join you guys
Anyway.
later, you know.
Yeah, I-
6.
I can do 5:30
Is
anytime
a-
after
is
that,
a,
really.
um,
But
Carl, what time can you start on Wednesday?
Bog?
Floating bog.
Oh, yeah?
What time do you think you'd be able to start?
Quarter to
Start for
five.
4, the three of us can start at 4:30 and then we'll just,
Make it quarter 5.
4:45 and then just tell us where you want us to meet?
all right, why don't we start at 10
Yeah,
Fort
yeah,
Pond?
it's amazing.
That's all dark,
Yeah.
so
You
we'll
walk-
start that
I
early.
walk behind there.
And I'll just text you and see where
and
you
all the
are when
trees,
at
it's
6.
like,
Don't text,
the
call.
roots are just all,
At the
Don't
circus.
text,
it's
call.
look like if I jump up and down.
They
Wednesday, the
should-
11th at
Yeah.
I
4:45.
can hear the texting, all your clothes on, walking through the woods.
No, it is,
Supposed
yeah.
to be making cookies on Wednesday, Jesus Christ.
All right, I would like to, I would like to
Maybe
end
involved in
this.
that one.
So,
No, it
I
wasn't.
would like to
Stacy's
make a
line?
motion to adjourn at
next to yours.
9:45.
Second that emotion.
Yeah, no, no.
And then
Aye.
you involved in it, but that, Tom loves that, so it's